time spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Tried to force the play, and it's intercepted. B.J. Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, we're back after what was an extended holiday weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. I was out Friday, and then also everybody out yesterday. We're back. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina in studio. I'm David Smoak, and we appreciate your time on 365 Sports. There's a lot to talk about, especially coming from the SEC meeting, starting with some barbs from Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. We're going to hear a little bit of that. Plus, the Big 12 meetings have begun, the spring meetings, a couple of notes there. And we will look later on in the show at baseball. They've set up their field for the NCAA tournament. Pretty good news over the weekend for the Big 12. David Ubben, Justin Waters, ACC Network, Sam Kahn, Chris Williams from the Cyclone Fanatic site covers Iowa State, and the Big 12, John McClain, a part of what we have today on the show. All right, how do you want to set this up, guys? We got audio from Greg Sankey. We could play it off the top and then discuss it with our own opinions. How do you want to do this?
I think we need to just let Greg rip here.
Yep.
And just know what we did here was we took out, I say by we, I mean Garrett. Garrett took out all the questions, in which just kind of the general statements you've heard over time. So it's going to seem like he's kind of beatboxing through this really fast, but we took out the questions at the press conference.
Yeah, we'll have some reaction to it, including one from the Big 12 Public Relations Department. But here is SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey.
Look at the track record. We didn't need 12. Did we stayed at 4, we would have had half the 4 last year. I don't need lectures from others about good of the game. I don't lecture others about good of the game. Coordinating press releases about good of the game. Okay, you can issue your press statement, but I'm actually looking for ideas to move us forward. I thought the 12-team design was really well considered at the time. We never had a unanimous vote to support the 12-team playoff. Even though I was involved in that work, that didn't mean everybody in this league, when we were at 14, thought it was the best idea. But you engage in that type of problem solve. We have to make a decision. The CFP and my colleagues have to understand there's something different here. We all play college football. And so while you ask that of me, I'll go back and say, we didn't need a 12-team college football playoff. Thought it was good for the game. I was involved in that. Others held it up. I thought it was important to get after that work in a time-efficient manner, yet we held up, and then we went fast. We didn't go slow so we could go fast. We didn't do anything, and then we went fast without solving some of the other elements. I think I have a responsibility to push as well. And I think my membership has a responsibility and the desire to push me. And that is a hard issue. If you want to go inside what it's like to sit in this role, I think about the responsibility I have here. I think about the responsibility more broadly all the time. And when I go back to the college football playoff, I'm open to ideas. There's just not a lot of incoming. My phone's not ringing off the hook. with, hey, here's another way to look at it. And so we'll continue to be thoughtful. We'll continue to try to provide perspective and information to our members and help them guide the decision. And ultimately, I recognize I'm the one who ends up typically in front of the podium explaining not just myself, but ourselves.
I heard a lot of I and a lot of me and a lot of my in that 2.5-minute clip from Greg Sankey, the SEC. We're not saying his job is easy, but most of the reaction, and I don't know what it has been with you, that's why we're about to hear from Paul and Craig and me as well, was who in the hell do you think you are? Yes, it's a powerful conference. He's got a great job and all that, but my God, it seemed like there was a lot of Greg Sankey saying like he's the emperor without saying that you have to kiss his ring.
I read it. I mean, there were a couple things he said that I thought were like, okay, buddy. Now there's a lot of things and there's a lot of nuance to what he said in relation to the playoff. He did say, one, that like he thought like when, and this is in response to this good of the game, that he thought the 12-team playoff was for the good of the game. And that's why he did that, which is why I think he took umbrage with feeling like he was lectured on the good of the game, but also your actions, Greg. Now, Tony Petitti's part of this too and says nothing, which I think was part of that. Like I'm the one who comes up here and answers the questions. Part of that is, yeah, they said that because the good of the game does not mean automatic qualifiers and all these other things that you guys are trying to bake in that you just kind of steam ahead and don't care about everybody else, just to kind of everybody else's detriment but your own, which is nobody else really has that power like the two of you do. So some of it I thought was a lot of perspective, and then some of it was he got angry because he didn't like what they said.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably right in talking about how there's not a lot of other ideas coming from other places. So if you want me to do something different or back something different, why don't you come to the table with something different that's worthwhile to chew on? How about that? And it doesn't sound like anybody's really doing that. So to his point, that would probably help matters. But I also don't think that there's anything anybody's going to be able to bring that he's going to want to chew on. I mean, what are the Big 12 and the ACC going to bring to the table that's not already been discussed? And we know that giving them 2 automatic qualifiers is already a tug of war as it is. And 3 was just completely just, I mean, that basically seems like it was just the most pointless gesture because there's little to no chance that's going to be accepted by people like him. So there's their ideas. Hey, we would like more representation. No, I don't like that. I don't know what other ideas they can come up with outside of just, well, if we want to get 3, let's go with a 24-team playoff. I mean, that's all you can do if you're them. If you want representation and you're looking for ideas, Greg, they're looking for how they can get more teams in, just like you're looking how you can get more teams in. And the only way that everybody can come to an agreement how to get more teams in, apparently, is to keep expanding the field. So therein lies a problem there, that no one's really wanting to work with each other to probably do what's best. Everybody's looking out for their own self-interest, which has been the theme of college football basically forever, but especially in these last 2 to 3 years. So I can see where that's frustrating because you want what you want and you don't necessarily think others deserve what they want. So I don't know what they could come to the table with that's actually going to get a conversation out of him. Like, what could they present him with that would keep the conversation going or moving? I'd be interested to know that from him. I don't feel like there was really a lot of follow-up that I saw in terms of the SEC reporters and coming to, further delve into anything that he said. Everything that I saw headline-wise was Sankey unloads on Big 12 ACC. Sankey goes scorched earth on Big 12 ACC. And it was the same quote, just in every article, just a different tagline. But I never saw like, well, impressed by the so-and-so, he expanded and said, this is why he doesn't get in. Like, so he's just saying something that's pretty vague that we don't know because we're not in those meetings. So I don't know what to say on behalf of the Big 12 and ACC other than, I guess, come up with better ideas. But I don't know what you could do that he'll respond to. What? So that's the first big problem. The second problem is he is a sensitive little boy in this clip, man. Yeah. We said on Friday when the Big 12 and the ACC released their statements, it sounded like, oh, man, it sounded like they've been talking to each other because it was almost word for word the exact same thing. And the most common thread in those statements was the good of the game. And we talked about how that's probably smart on the Big 12 and ACC's part to be somewhat coordinated with each other because, boys, you're on an island by yourselves right now. So there's little to no hope that you're getting off without the help of one another. So you probably need to start coming together and figuring out what you can do to have somewhat of an alliance of sorts to just battle little battles where you can. And so in the case of last week, for them both to come out, both commissioners, and say the similar thing of, hey, doing what's good for the game, that ruffled his feathers clearly. Mm-hmm. That really, he has, I think, his ears out, and maybe if it's not him, it's like his assistant or somebody that's paying attention to what people say. You can tell they hit a sore spot with the good of the game line, because that's the one that he dwelled on, and that's the one that's been kind of hanging around these past couple of days as has been discussed. So, that hit a sore spot, that hit a nerve, I should say, and I think they need to hit it over and over again and keep hitting it, because clearly it got a rise out of him. Now, maybe the reaction's not quite what you were looking for. I don't know. But it did get a response out of him, and it led to all this audio. So I think they did something right there. And I guess the main point would be there wasn't a coordinated statement in that they both left the meetings and said, hey, we're going to drop this at 3, and then you go at 3:15. If Greg or his satellite ears that roam around looking for headlines that people are talking about him, they'd understand that specifically in one of those statements in the article itself said, statement in response to questioning by ESPN. Yep. So they were answering a question from a reporter, and that was their statement, Greg. It wasn't, Endeavor going off and just out of nowhere going, here's Brett Yormark on Greg Sankey's playoff plans. No, it was them answering a question from an outlet. Like it said in the article, you or whoever reads those for you missed that part. And that's where I think he got way over his skis. And that's when you clearly see how much that nerve got touched.
He did. And he was so sensitive. Here's Clark Williams, who has done a really good job for the Big 12. And he, of course, works under the leadership of Brett Yormark. This was in response to Sankey on the coordinated, whatever he said, press releases. There was no press release from the Big 12, let alone a coordinated one with the ACC regarding straight seeding. So there was the Big 12. So here's we don't change it. It just seems like nothing has changed. There's still the arguments. I wish we could get to a finality on a lot of different things and not just the college football playoff. But Paul, does he make a point? Is there anything of what he said? You kind of alluded to a couple of things. Anything from what you heard from Sankey, and that was only 2 things out of like 2 minutes out of 50, that made sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, look, to kind of echo Craig a little bit, yeah, he says they're not coming up with ideas, but the bottom line is like there's 2 ideas, Craig. There's your automatic qualifier idea at 16, and then there's 5 plus 11. So which one do you want? Now, what he did say that makes sense to me with all that is because in this we didn't get into as much, but about the strength of schedule. He basically said with 5 plus 11, you are saying that only the record matters, not the who happens in the record, which I don't agree with. And then he was saying with the automatic qualifiers, then who we play does matter more. So I would like to continue playing those games, so that would be the benefit to it. He was basically telling everybody, pick your poison on what happens. Either way, the SEC is going to get theirs.
Yeah, they are. So, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is whether they go to the left or to the right, I don't get the whole act of like they're being threatened somehow. That's the part I don't jive with, when they act as though they're being pushed out of the way or people are trying to attack them or cut them off at the knees. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're everybody, Greg, except for you and Tony Petitti. Like everybody else is like in this position, and I've talked about it multiple times of I don't get paid the millions of dollars Brett Yormark gets paid, so I'm glad that I'm not in that position, although I'd be glad to get paid millions of dollars to make those tough decisions. So you want to give me that salary, I'll make the right choice that I feel like I can make. But if you're Brett Yormark right now, it's like, yeah, you're between a rock and a hard place. You're like, what do we give up to still have this access and this representation, or do we call their gamble and then we're left out in the cold entirely? Like right now, you have some level of say still. You're not going to have ultimately a lot of say in the final decision making, but you have more say than every other college commissioner out there, not named Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti. And you have the exact same much as Jim Phillips, right? So you're one of like the top 4 commissioners. And so you do have something more than a lot of the others have, ultimately not a deciding factor, but your voice is heard in the room. And how much do you want to risk that? And then you risk the Big 12 not having 2 automatic qualifiers, which in a 16-team field, as many people have pointed out, they wouldn't have had 2 teams in the playoff. Mm-hmm. right? It would have been like BYU was like 17th or something like that. So they still would have ended up with the same. So that's whereas like you have this tough decision of like automatic qualifiers actually does make sense. Like you're guaranteed to, whereas before you're not guaranteed. Even in an expanded field, you're not guaranteed to. Whereas on the flip side, it's like you want to do it a different way. I don't know. It might be better. It might be worse. So they're in a tough spot. SEC is not a tough spot. They're going to get theirs regardless. And so, it's kind of hard to be lectured by a guy who's the king of the castle and is already getting as much as he wants and is still looking for more. And then the moment you try to point out, well, maybe you're being a little bit selfish, he absolutely loses his mind as much as somebody in his position will lose their mind at the podium.
There's a couple of stats we're going to get to in a moment from Brett McMurphy. Paul, real quick.
Yeah, I do think that the I'm the one who's out here in front of the microphone.
Yes.
That was his like, hey, Tony, are we in this together or not, bruh? Like, I'm out here taking bullets, and you're just back there going like, I'm in Chicago.
I read a pretty in-depth article over the weekend from Stuart Mandel that Petiti is the one that has actually come up with one of the ideas.
He's the AQ guy.
Yeah.
He's the AQ guy. Sankey actually has never really been for that, knowing that, and we'll get into this in a second, that without AQs, he's more likely to get more. Without, when you have to go through and go top four, top two, because it's not about the 4 AQs he's going to get. It's about those ones that Craig was talking about, that Craig was talking about, the Big 12 wouldn't have gotten to last year. Yeah. So those would have gone to a team like Alabama or Ole Miss or whoever. But, part of it needs to be, look, I know that you think you're doing what's best for college football, or it's in your mind, but you really do, have to stop acting like a dictator in all this, because what Greg Sankey says and what he does don't always jive. And he serves at the pleasure of 16 university presidents that the mission directive is F those other guys. They don't care. So if he walked into the room, I do think if he walked into the room, in the SEC room, and said, look, I tried for all this, but we really I think for overall the good of the game, for every conference, including us, we're going to have to take a little bit of a step back, but it's not going to really hurt us that bad. The overwhelming majority of people in the room would ask him, then what do we pay you for? Because they don't have that goal.
Brett McMurphy, teams per conference, based on the current alignment that would have qualified the past 11 since it began college football playoffs, if only the top 16 seeded teams receive bids. The Big Ten, 56, SEC, 53. They're getting their teams in. They're getting what they want most of the time. Yes, oh my God, Alabama, who replaced an unbeaten Florida State 2 years ago, didn't get in. And we'll have a quote from Kalen DeBoer about that in a minute. Notre Dame 8, the ACC and Big Ten, ACC and Big 12 about the same. A slight edge there to the Big 12. The group of 6 had 6. One other note on this right here. In a proposed 4-4, 2-2, 1-3 college football playoff format, auto bids for the 4 major conferences and for the group of 5. And then, of course, you also have the at-large. How many teams, based on current leagues, would have made the 16-team playoff in the last 11 years ranked outside the top 16? Paul, explain what they're saying here.
Okay, so these are the teams that, to fill the automatic qualifiers, that you would have had to go outside the top 16 over this time, over these 11 years to get. So in total, it is 15 teams. 7 of them from the group of 6, 3 from the ACC, 3 from the SEC, 2 from the Big 12, and none from the Big 10, which is probably what makes them feel justified in saying that we should get 4 automatic qualifiers, because we would have never had to go outside of the top 16 to get our 4. We would have always had 4 every year in the top 16, as where the Big 12, even the SEC, to get to 4, like last year, they would have had to go outside of it, quite potentially. The ACC, 3 different times to get to that second team. The Big 12 twice to get to that second team. The group of 6, 7 times just to get to their 1, because of how the rankings fall. So this kind of sheds light on the argument of how many times over 11 seasons you would have to go outside the top 16. I think this makes the argument that you're not getting the best 16 teams every single year if at least once a year you have to, if no more, 15 times in 11 years, more than once a year you have to go outside to fill your qualifier.
Yep. So there we are with a couple of Brett McMurphy. We're going to skip over Mandel. We'll get to that, Garrett, a little bit later on. Meanwhile, Kalen DeBoer, and again, it's the SEC meetings, and we heard from Sankey yesterday and now coaches today. And there were some really good points, including what I thought from Kirby Smart on the transfer portal, but a great response to that. Alabama's Kalen DeBoer on being left out of last year's college football playoff. You wonder what would have happened if the other people, in other words, other teams that got in, would have played our schedule. I like Kalen DeBoer. I know what Alabama's accomplished. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Oklahoma, who was very average at best. At Vanderbilt with 7-5 with Pavia, a great story. And they also, I think, lost to Tennessee, who, of course, was a college football playoff team. That's from Kalen DeBoer on what would other teams who got in, where would they have been had they played Alabama's schedule? You have conferences. Every conference plays their schedule. Some conferences are cyclical good. Some, like the SEC, seem to be good all the time. But Kalen DeBoer, you got in 2 years ago. You weren't the head coach because Florida State had a quarterback who was injured, who was an unbeaten team.
Yeah, all that happened, and I don't know. I'm not going to react too strongly to coaches saying coach things. I mean, these guys say stuff like this all the time. Kirby Smart tries to convince people that his number one team and his number one recruiting class and his top 5 recruiting class for like 10 straight years is somehow like the freaking little giants lining up against, the 95 Cowboys. I mean, and people actually buy it. Not very, with it people, but some people buy what they're sold, and I'm sure there's Alabama fans who are like, yeah, Kalen, exactly right. And look, they've got a small argument to make, like several others do from last year's playoffs. They're not the only ones by any means. They're not like Project A in terms of those that got disrespected the most by any means. Alabama's benefited as greatly as anybody with benefit of the doubt scenarios over the last few years. So this is just a college coach saying what he needs to say to satisfy his fan base and to make his program feel good about them being disrespected or pushed away, rather than, the truth, which is they lost 3 games in the regular season, and that's why he didn't make the playoff, including a 3-touchdown blowout to the most average Oklahoma team I've seen in 20 years.
Absolutely,
so his argument's actually pretty empty, in my opinion, but I know that we're going to get into a lot of this strength of schedule stuff, which then becomes very subjective, and it becomes an echo chamber, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy the more that you tout it and talk it up. And I think that's intentional on the part of the SEC folks, this strength of schedule. It's almost coordinated, like the press releases that Greg Sankey made up. Mm-hmm. But, he's saying what Alabama's supposed to say. They got disrespected and left out of the playoff, and had BYU or had Arizona State or had who else? Indiana or whoever else you feel wasn't deserving, SMU, had they played Alabama's schedule, yeah, I'm sure they probably would have had, a similar fate, maybe worse, but I don't think all of them would have lost by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma last year. So it's just coach saying coach things.
There's a lot of hypotheticals that are into this. Some of them are real meat on the bone evidence when it comes to picking teams, but there's a lot, well, they would have, or what if we would have, or what if they would have. There's too much of that. I thought this was a pretty cool one. Blake Monroe covers Texas. The Longhorns are the only SEC school out of 16 that will not play an FCS team during the 2025 season. They're only one of 10 schools total that do not have an FCS opponent on their schedule this year. Now, this may change from year to year, but it's not a very large group. The schools include Texas, Notre Dame, USC, and UCLA, Michigan, Wisconsin, Stanford, Colorado, Tulane, and Sam Houston State University.
Yeah, that last one shocked me. Like, you would think of all the teams on this list, they would have at least 1 or 2, since they're, new to this whole FBS game. But I guess they ain't scared of nothing out in Huntsville because they're –
Well, I wonder if that schedule was set up when Casey Keeler was still there before he went to Temple, but they would play people.
Like even still, yeah. So that was the thing that was most fascinating. Again, and Texas has they've never really, to their credit, they've never really gone down that road all that much. Not that they never have, but they'd rather just throw a Louisiana Monroe or somebody from the Sun Belt on their schedule than, do a guarantee game for maybe even a little bit more money for an FCS school. So they're not hurting. So, yeah, and Notre Dame never does either. So Yeah, all these other ones have had it, throughout the time. But, to Texas and Notre Dame's credit, they don't really do that.
I mean, good for those schools, all those that are doing that. I think there is an angle you can take where that's not the best thing in the world, because what about those small schools, right? All of a sudden those play-in games, or not play-in games, I'm thinking about the playoff, but those early season payday games, or in the case of the SEC, those late season get us bowl eligible, gimme wins because they got to take a break because the schedule's so tough narrative. I'm glad that those schools there are not going that route, and for Texas in particular, when everybody else is doing that, that's a good feather in their cap. So on the one hand, you respect it. On the other hand, like, is that just more of the bells tolling, and that's more of what it's going to be like when there are more scheduling arrangements put in place, and now you have, as you talked about last week, schools that normally rely on big money payday games early in the season that now look around and they don't have those anymore. And what does that look like? And so that's the negative, if there is one, with this. And I do think when it comes to the SEC scheduling piece, that obviously we just touched on with Kalen DeBoer, and I know it was a big topic there, and they talked about strength of schedule quite a bit, like the one less conference game, which the ACC, kind of like Tony Petitti being the head of the Big Ten, they just don't even get mentioned. It's only the SEC that gets mentioned in some of these problems. So they're not alone in not playing the same amount of conference games. But how much of so you play a tougher schedule. So how much gets negated by that fourth game that you play that's getting people bowl eligible against Towson in week 13? So you see, where does it balance out? How much tougher in your eyes is your schedule that you have an extra non-con game that's an extra gimme game, and it's later in the year most of the time, so that everybody gets a break because the SEC schedule is so tough, because that's the narrative that they built up. But should you only play 6 conference games and that'll be even with everybody else? Or is it 8 and everybody else plays 10? I just want to know where we are and how much tougher your schedule is in your eyes than everybody else's, because I don't think it's as much as they let on or put on or try to say. I think that, team by team, it probably is tougher, but I don't think it's this road that's 1,000 meters higher than any others that, is just so much grander and greater. I just would like to know of where is that median where you're kind of in line with everybody else, because you do have that gimme game later in the year for the most part. Texas doesn't, but everybody else has some version of that. So that's what I wonder when they talk about strength of schedule. What is equal then in your eyes? Does everybody else need to play 2 extra games to equal what you go through with the rigor of the SEC schedule? But we never get to that point, because I think it's all BS, quite frankly.
Let me bring up a point about what you both were saying. So Roll Tide Roll, we appreciate you being a part of the chat. We do, all of you who are in the chat room. I honestly think that Vandy team a year ago would have had a great chance of winning the Big 12. They were really good. They lost to 3-9 Georgia State. So, and everybody has sometimes what in the hell was that? But they lost to 3. Yeah, they lost to Texas and Tennessee and a couple of others. But when you go through, you lose to a 3-9 team, that tells you that they surely were not just some team that was going to mull through the Big 12 with the week in and week out when you don't know what you're going to get.
Well, and look, I think that last year, especially given the transfer portal and everything, showed that the distance has been cut between the SEC and everybody else. Because of that, they can't just keep rolling out Alabama could have beaten Vanderbilt, and they did for 34 straight years. They beat them, without problem for the most part. And so, but okay, Craig, to your point of what is that metric that they have, they're also shouting it from every other conference to be yes, we'll take $80 to $90 million a year to play whatever schedule is out in front of us, because we want that money. So you guys say that you deserve all this money and that your conference is worth all this much. And then when we ask you about your strength of schedule, you're oh God, it's so hard. You don't know what it's like to be us. Have you ever driven into Knoxville? It's scary there. Yeah, you guys know that. It's not anything that just comes up on you.
Our argument is not whether or not they have fantastic football teams and national championship caliber programs or whatever. That's not the argument. It's not as if you have to wake up every day and have to beat down 12 meteors who are hitting you in the forehead.
No, and I'm not even talking about any of that. I'm talking about what how much more difficult is your schedule? And Vandy was a great story last year. I don't know about them rolling in and just winning the Big 12. I mean, maybe there's a wide open league. I'm not really doing it to compare conferences, and I feel like a lot of SEC people we talk to feel like Vandy previously would roll in and win the Big 12 based on how Twitter acts. But I'm just saying, you play one less conference game than a couple of the other power conferences, right? And it's mostly a fluff game. I mean, it is. It's like Towson or the Citadel or whoever, like 2 weeks before the season ends. So a lot of teams who need that win that otherwise probably wouldn't get it in the very tough SEC. They get that 6th win, and then we get to hear about all the bowl teams and record-setting 14 out of 16 teams. That's all great. I'm not like anti-SEC here. I'm just curious from a fan perspective when the strength of schedule argument pops up of like what would even it out in their minds. That's all I'm curious about, because you already play one less conference game than the others, and you act like that's not evening the field at all. So like, what would it take to feel like you're not always just like this superior? I don't know. Maybe I'm not explaining it well.
But okay, you don't want to play a 9th game. What can everybody else do
to get on your level?
To get on your level so that it is equitable and you don't have to say it.
And I think the answer is nothing, because you're never going to ever respect, no matter what anybody else does, that they're on your level. I mean, and so that's just going to be something that never gets solved. And so the scheduling topic is probably pointless anyways. But yeah, I just hear the strength of schedule thing, and I just feel like that's very much a narrative that there are many cases where it's true, but it's not always true for every single team every single year. And not everybody's playing this gauntlet the way it's portrayed all the time. But it is the best league most years. And I don't think anybody's denying that, or denying that maybe some of the middle or even lower teams would be very successful and more successful in other leagues. I'm not going to debate that. I think the strength of schedule thing, they played that hand so many times. I just wonder what the point is of it all.
All right. One note from the Big 12, the SEC meetings that I thought was interesting. It's only the second time since 2006, there were no offseason head football coaching changes within the SEC. 16 teams, not one coach. There were some on thin ice. Billy Napier for a while at Florida. He seemed to be in pretty good shape, among a couple of others. Levy was new at Mississippi State. Pittman kind of got through it okay for now at Arkansas, but only the second time since 2006 that there were no offseason head coaching changes. Garrett, why?
I mean, I really don't know. I guess consistency there. I really have no answer why there would be no coaching changes, honestly.
Because LSU didn't have the courage.
Because there wasn't the right situation for it, yeah. Because the guys that needed to win won enough, and the other guys weren't in enough trouble to where their troubles led to a firing. I think that's really about as simple as it can be. The guys that you talked about before the season did just enough to keep their jobs, and then nobody else was really in great danger, did anything to fall off a cliff or had a scandal that led to them being fired. So Brent Venables, we'll see this year if that's the case. And Billy Napier will probably be a year-to-year check-in on him. And you know what? They win enough games, they'll be there. And if they don't, they won't. And last year, the people that needed to won enough games.
A note from Matt Brown, who's going to join us on the show Thursday. He has that extra points, does a great job, and he was writing a lot of stuff. But one of the things I saw him, this is from late last night. You know how most normie fans feel about NIL, labor regulation, conversation? That's how I feel about the constant litigating college football access and strength of schedule arguments. I'm sick of it. The loudest voices aren't honest, and it'll end with game even more rigged towards the powerful.
Yes, and then that's where I was coming from with my strength of schedule thing. It's like, for example, we have, and hey, Roll Tide, appreciate the Bama watcher out there, but you have somebody saying, well, Vanderbilt last year would have won the Big 12. Like, and it's like, it's just very subjective. It's very subjective. Strength of schedule is subjective. And so that's where I wonder of like, you know, where can you get it to where it's not as subjective and it is more balanced, and you don't have certain leagues saying, well, no matter what happens to us, we always get to pull the strength of schedule card. Like that, I just don't think that that's the best thing or the healthiest thing. Sorry, Greg, don't flip out for the game. And so, yeah, I think the argument about strength of schedule is one where I'm finding a lot of frustration right now, because I just feel like it's convenient when it needs to be, and it's not always truthful, and it's a little bit of propaganda at times. So, yeah, when I see the strength of schedule argument going in full circles, I see people who aren't being honest about the topic, and I feel like there's nothing you can say to convince the other side that they aren't always going to have a strength of schedule in their minds that is light years better than yours, even if the actual facts say that it isn't. The narrative says that it is, and you're not changing the narrative.
He said in that same tweet, I would rather, or like maybe in response to it, I would rather debate the 2020 election on this app.
Oh, God.
But it's become the same kind of argument where you can have facts or whatever, but if you are on one side or the other, if the facts don't line up with you, you can be like, well, I don't know what your source is there. And you kind of throw it out there. You're like, all right.
All right, we will have later in the show the cover boys of the EA Sports College Football 2026. A couple of really cool NIL nuggets on Sam Levitt, Arizona State, and Taz Williams, a wide receiver at Baylor, among some others. David Ubben, theathletic.com, Justin Walters from the ACC Network today. Sam Konza out last week with a lot of meetings up in New York with theathletic.com. He's going to join us earlier this week. Jeremiah Dickey, who is the AD at Boise State, will be one of our guests tomorrow early in the show. He had an interesting tweet, of course, last week about, hey, why don't you just tell us this is about us as far as the college football playoff moving to what they want to do with 12 and then 16. A lot to get to. We will look at the Big 12 and teams that got into the NCAA baseball tournament, and where sometimes they do get overlooked, they got a break in a good way, earned it on teams at the end who got into the bracket. That and more. We appreciate your time. This is 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Berg Colgan Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Stuart Mandel of theathletic.com wrote an article. This was, I think, late Friday, maybe Saturday. Big Ten SEC plans for college football playoff are only getting more nonsensical. Now, I don't think all of their plans are that way, but he had a couple of notes, and one of them was with the possibility, and I think Tony Petitti is the one that was discussing the play-ins and all that. No one asked for a first four of college football. Will the games be played in Dayton? Those matchups last season under the straight seeding model adopted Thursday would have been number 13 Miami against 16 seed Clemson, two pretty good names, and 14 seed Ole Miss against 15 seed South Carolina. And I love this line. Games like this used to be known as the Outback Bowl.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I spit giggled when I saw that from him in this article.
Yeah. And, when they said the straight seating thing, and then you're talking about double buys potentially for some of the top teams and all of that, like all of it is just like
the double buys thing is like that's the ridiculous part.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just, and I know it's probably negotiating.
This is part of that.
It's negotiating, and that's part of, for those that don't know what this is from, and probably people watching this know well enough. But yeah, this is from the scenario kicked around last week where you'd have double buys for the top seeds, and guess who those are going to come from?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's not enough.
Yeah.
Like that's still not enough. We got to get more. We got to have all the top seeds because we got to throw out conference champions, get the auto buys because that took like 2 spots that we already have. And now we got to have double buys because the teams that already have more money than everybody now need to have another game where everybody else is playing. So they're going to have 2 games under their belts before we even have to play. And this and that. And I just think that's a horrific idea. I think that idea sucks. And I'm not somebody who's like Mr. Anti-expanded playoff in every form or fashion. I actually think there's not just like one clean conversation to have about all this. It depends on your angle. Because, for example, the expanded playoff, while it might be a bit of a pain in the ass, is good for the Big 12. Because in a 14 playoff, especially once realignment happened and the money situation changed the way that it did, the odds of your teams making the 14 college football playoff in most any years was, I think, going to be pretty low. I think now you're looking at possibly a couple teams guaranteed or however that works itself out. So I think it depends on what chair you're sitting in on particular parts of the subject. It's not just all or nothing for everybody. You're this or you're that. I think it's much more complex than that. But as far as the double buys go, I hope most everybody's on board with that idea. Sucks, including the fans who that would benefit the most. Because that's not, I don't think it's a good thing or an entertaining thing for the game. And yeah, it's the Outback Bowl basically happening under the guise of the playoff. Now, if it wasn't double seeded buys, then I think this would be a lot better because you'd have one play 16 and it would be actually like March Madness. And I'd be okay with that. I know the game may not be great. It may be a blowout, but I'd rather see that versus this double buy nonsense because, yeah, I think those matchups as far as like those teams all have to play each other and then play again and then they get to play Georgia. I just think that's dumb. I think that's a dumb idea. So I hate the double buy concept.
I would say it never will happen, but I would be stunned that college football, no matter who has the turf or not, would ever allow that to occur.
And the double buy idea is one of those like horrendously bad ideas that you throw out.
Yes,
that you wonder what is the thing that they really want. And that's what I would like if I was everybody else. Like, okay, let's pretend this double buy thing is real, but we got rid of it. What is it you really want us to do so we can end this thing? Just say that out loud first.
David Ubben, theathletic.com, joins us. David has a new podcast called The Bunch Formation. We'll talk about that in a minute. We have him up until 4 o'clock Central today. David, thank you very much. It looks like that Greg Sankey rattled some cages over the weekend. A little bit of from kiss the emperor's ring to what in the heck is he talking about, or he has every right to feel the way he does. Your overall thoughts about what we saw and heard from him on Sunday?
I think some of this is interesting because, obviously the biggest sticking point here is the auto bids. Now, how we get there is sort of complicated, the strength of schedule stuff. What is the role of the committee if you have 8 automatic bids and, 10, 11 bids and all that stuff? It's sort of secondary. But the auto bids is something that Tony Petitti sort of has been the architect of, and obviously the SEC supports that. But I don't know. I didn't make a ton of it. I mean, I think his tone was different than we've heard, but I don't know that the meat of what he was saying was all that different than anything that we didn't know previously.
He says he would like others to come up with ideas, David, but what other ideas do you think he would possibly be receptive to, being the guy along with Tony Petitti, who are kind of sitting on the throne already? What could the Big 12 or ACC or other counterparts, do you feel like, or even people within their own leagues, come up with that you think maybe would turn the conversation a little to a different direction?
Well, I mean, if they just want to give all of the revenue to the SEC, I think they'd be amenable to any kind of format changes. I mean, I think that's part of the question here. And then, of course, obviously, as we get into the rev share era of college sports and, what the clearinghouse looks like, how enforcement works. I mean, there's so many big questions here. Specifically when we're talking about the playoff, I don't know if there's any crazy ideas that people can throw at them. I do think that ultimately, when you're talking about auto bids, if the SEC and the Big Ten want 4, I think they underrate how much that would undermine the authority of the event. The antitrust element of that, like whether or not the Big 12 and ACC could have some say in court of, obviously you have 2 leagues that are setting up an event that is, would be giving them some advantages, naturally, and that comes into an earning question. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, so I leave that up to the courts, but that is interesting. But, we've looked at it, and if you don't do auto bids and you leave it as is, the league comes out pretty similarly. But then that auto bid conversation comes into, well, if we're going to reimagine conference championship weekend, we can't be playing these games, these play-in games, and leaving people in doubt. They have to actually clinch these bids. And so it gets complicated because, if you're going to make these events and turn championship weekend into something from 1 game into 4 games with playoff spots at stake, well, then whatever money you make there is probably worth, whatever legitimacy it undermines in the playoffs. So how this looks and where we're at in 2026, I think it's a super, super complicated question. And I don't envy the guys in the room, in Destin this weekend as they sort of discuss what the SEC really wants to push for here.
David, there's a lot of talk about their, playing 9 games or what model and all this. I think also part of the problem is that the SEC does not want to have a good faith public discussion about these things out in the open to where everybody else can understand where they're coming from. We just talked about it a second ago, is that, they're saying, well, the schedule in the SEC is this much harder, but they're not all like Greg Sankey's own words thrown back at him. What can you give the other people to let them know what they have to schedule so that in your mind that everybody is on equal footing when it comes to that, so that they can potentially get spots that they also feel that they deserve, just like you are getting?
I mean, that's a complicated question. We could be out here for like an hour and a half discussing some of that, and they're going to be doing that in the room. I mean, I still think it just comes down to, and this, I've talked about this a lot over the last couple of years, and that's obviously what Greg Sankey was alluding to, is that the SEC has obviously done things that were not good for college football. And, I think it's a truth serum, Greg Sankey, Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 for the SEC was not good for college football. It obviously further destabilized the Pac-12, led to the death of West Coast football. But to Greg Sankey's credit, he's not hired to run college football. He's hired to do the thing that his membership would like him to do. And when you're, bringing in as much additional money as Texas and Oklahoma did, then that's a big part of why you do those things that obviously aren't probably good for the sport as a whole. Well, that factors into the entire college football, this playoff debate and what the format is going to be. And regardless of whatever you end up at, you've still got 4 different formats in 4 years, and nobody's necessarily happy. But I will say that I do find the SEC's complaints about the selection committee sort of ringing on deaf ears. This isn't something that comes up in basketball. People complain about their seed line, but that's, sort of here nor there. But the SEC has gotten a lot of breaks from the committee. And last year, the crying about the so-called strength of schedule, well, you got 3 3-loss teams in the SEC that are being in the conversation, at least, certainly led by Alabama. I would argue Ole Miss was a better team there. But, we're talking about, well, does SMU deserve to get in? Does Indiana deserve to get in? All of these things. Well, the only reason that's a conversation because of strength of schedule. And just, if you're going to cry about a 3-loss team or a 2-loss team getting in ahead of of your 3-loss team. That's just I just don't think it's as simple as the SEC would like to say that it is. It's like we're not having our strength of schedule respected. You are. That's why this is a conversation. That's why Alabama finished ahead of Miami, finished ahead of I forget who the other team was, another 2-loss team. That's why, because of the strength of schedule.
David, I saw one of the points to that you put on Twitter. I don't know if this is in reaction or just to all of what was going on yesterday and even part of the day. If you still think a 3-loss Alabama with losses to Vandy and Oklahoma should have gone into the playoff ahead of a 1-loss Indiana, you probably want the committee to introduce recruiting ratings as an evaluation metric.
Yeah. I mean, I have to yell this every December. The games have to matter. What was Ole Miss and South Carolina and Alabama a better team than Indiana? This is an argument. I probably agree that those teams were better, but the games have to matter. If they don't, then we're just talking about recruiting rankings, and that's not what college football is.
David, what do you think of the comment he made about he didn't need to be lectured about the good of college football do you think that means that particular thing stung him harder than anything else? And should the Big 12, ACC, and the rest keep up that rhetoric because it did make a dent in his armor?
I don't know. I think he just wants to reminding people that his job is not to be commissioner of college football. His job is to be commissioner of the SEC. So he's going to do what's best for the SEC. And I think, again, kind of like I said before, it's not like if you truth serum him, I think he would say, yeah, Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC is probably not great for college football. But that's not his job. And, there's a lot of blame being thrown at Greg Sankey and probably not enough at the presidents and ADs and chancellors of the SEC that sort of push Greg Sankey to do the things that they want. He represents them. Yes, he can introduce some ideas. Yes, he can be a powerful voice in the room. But he's not just doing stuff. They vote to do this stuff. So, I think it would be served as a reminder there. And as the Big 12 and ACC, are sort of saying, hey, we got to do a special sport. It probably serves as a reminder of hey, no, I don't. And you don't have to like it, but Greg Sankey doing what's best for college football, you take that down too far a road, that's Greg Sankey being replaced as commissioner of the SEC. That's just what it is.
Yeah, exactly right. David, how do you feel about double buys? I mean, in all seriousness, if it was up to you, I think that idea is ludicrous, and I think a lot of people assume that's throwing something out there to then ask for something else later on down the line. I mean, you can give me your opinion on that, but what is your ideal scenario at this point if David Ubben had the magic wand and could wave it around and make it the way he sees fit?
Well, I'm an 18 playoff guy. So I do think I don't mind a double bye because I still think that you need to make the regular season matter. And I think 16, you're playing a dangerous game in eliminating the relevance of the regular season. But if you're handing out really valuable things, like a bye, like a double bye, like a home game in the playoff, then, these games matter. Seeding really matters. Those cut lines really matter. And you don't have to worry about, we got this rivalry game, but we got to think about, resting our starters. There's no impetus to do that if you're sacrificing, hey, we're going to have to play another game if we lose this game. So I kind of like it because I think you're helping to make sure that the regular season and all of those games matter. But I will say that the complexity of a 16-team bracket looking the way that it will, it's not great on paper, but I think the outcome would probably work better than people like. I think people sort of reflexively bristle at the double bye, but what it does is I think protects the regular season. So, David,
I know you got to go here in a minute. You also came up with the article, I ranked 25 of the best games the last 25 years, which I can't imagine is I would think some are automatic. 05 Texas, USC, among others. How difficult was that list once you got past perhaps 10 or 15?
Well, we didn't have that much of a time. I think, for whatever it's worth, those are somewhat apples to apples. I was not envious of my colleagues who rank the players and coaches, where certainly coaches is the most complicated one, and obviously the one that made people the angriest, because there's just so many factors that go into it. But for whatever it's worth, a 60-minute football game is a lot closer to apples than if you're comparing, what did Kyle Whittingham do versus what Bill Snyder did versus what Ryan Day has done. Like, that's a complicated conversation. So, I probably had a couple games that were on there that I ended up taking off. There were a bunch of games that I considered. I would say probably the 26th game on that list was Ohio State, Michigan 2016. But there's some deep cuts on there that people probably didn't remember. The 2017 War on I-4 was kind of a late addition to that list. That I think was a massive game that had a lot of relevance and was also an incredible football game. And so it was more fun than I guess stressful putting that list.
Yeah,
like a lot of good memories.
I think that would be that way, rather than it's like some sort of a thing you got to do a final essay to get your grade in college or whatever it might be, to enjoy. Like, oh yeah, how about that game here and there? David, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thanks for your time. TheAthletic.com. We got a lot of different writers that we have on from that outlet. You guys do a great job, and we appreciate it. We'll talk with you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
David Ubben, by the way, launched again. It's called Bunch Formation with Chris Fanini, another writer we've had on from TheAthletic.com. Coming up, Justin Walters from the ACC Network. We've been trying to get a couple of representatives other than media outlets. Of course, the network is a media outlet. His thoughts about college football, the ACC, and more. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor alumni fan engagement, Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe. Doug Furch sent me a text about some of the events they have coming up, including the Texas Tour in DFW, Houston, and in San Antonio, where the coaches, in this case Baylor, will be making the trip around the state of Texas to discuss their programs, college athletics, and so much more. The fall kickoff luncheon, Nick Florence, former Baylor quarterback, will be the guest speaker. Also, information on the home tailgating, which is right outside McClain Stadium, right there on MLK and the Brazos River. The SMU game, there will be a huge contingent up in Dallas for Bears on the Road tailgating at the Bush Library on the SMU campus. For more information, go to Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement on Facebook or go to baylor.edu.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports on this 4 o'clock hour. Sam Kahn will join us earlier in the week this week. He's going to join us at 4:25. We're now joined, is that right, Garrett, by Justin Walters, ACC, host of the ACC Network. He joins us on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul and David Smoak. Justin, thank you very much for your time. So the ACC obviously is in that Big 12 type realm. They're both very similar. There's the two big boys up front with the SEC and the Big 10. What does the ACC need, in your opinion, to maybe separate and get back to where they used to be?
They have to win some of the big games. Appreciate you guys having me on first and foremost. But those big games start with Tennessee taking on Syracuse. We saw last year so many opportunities. Clemson taking on LSU. This year, if you want to change the narrative, you have to make sure that you get the job done. I think the ACC can compete with some of those schools. SMU, the game got out of hand, but I thought a lot of those issues in the college football playoff last year against Penn State were self-inflicted with Kevin Jennings. The moment just felt too big. But when it comes to answering your question, set the narrative, set the tone early on. You cannot tell me with the production that Clemson has returning that they can't be one of the best teams in the country. That offense is sick. Cade Klubnik had the best performance against Texas secondary last year, and that secondary was number one in the country. But overall, they have to set the tone and make sure they show up for some of those ACC, SEC games, whether it's Florida against Florida State. All of those games matter in terms of setting the tone and establishing a narrative.
Yeah, FSU beating Bama would go a long way. They're on the course.
I didn't want to throw that game out there.
No, but I mean, look,
Thomas Castellanos in the season that FSU had last year. I wanted to pump the brakes, but thank you for reminding us.
No, but to the ACC, did they? They're top heavy with Clemson. Miami looks like they're gonna feel a very similar team that they did last year. May even be better on defense. Obviously, SMU brings back a lot of guys, but after that, it starts to there's tons of what ifs. Louisville and FSU and all that. How do they get I don't want to say less top heavy? You want to be top heavy, but more evenly distributed so the people notice that the league is playing better and it's a good game every week, no matter what you're watching.
You know what's funny, though? I'd actually have a little bit of pushback with that. For example, Louisville, to me, is a really good team. Last year, they were a really good team. They had signature wins. They're going to start this year a top 25 team in the country. I trust Jeff Brom. We're still uncertain. Of course, this is all conjecture and predictions, but Miller Moss and what he's going to look like coming from USC. But they have a good wide receiver group with Colin Lacey as well as Chris Bell. Isaac Brown, one of the best running backs last year as a freshman, coming back. I do think that there are other teams, while they may not have the signature brand as some of the bigger schools, whether it be in the Big 10 or SEC, they are good clubs. Another storyline I would go to last year, you truly cannot tell me that UNLV should have been ranked higher than Syracuse based off of what Syracuse did, knowing that Syracuse beat them last year at their crib. Now, in terms of this year, there's no Kyle McCord, and a majority of the star players have left, including Pena, who went to Penn State. But still, I think sometimes in the college football rankings, there are a lot of votes that are biased. But if you look at the product on the field, I think there's some really good teams in there. Duke had some really signature wins last year in the first year for Manny Diaz. We know what he brings when it comes to defense. Malik Murphy no longer there, but Darian Mensah, now the Tulane quarterback, will be there. I do think that they're really good teams, even in the middle of the pack. While they may not get the exposure that other schools may get, they still are really good.
Justin, how do you view SMU? I mean, to fight for so long to just get into a power league, and then the first year they're in there, they make the playoff. I mean, just an unreal debut season. Kevin Jennings back. Lashley, obviously, still the man in charge, but last year they were new. They were fresh, right? Everybody's kind of getting used to them. What do you expect in year number 2 now that everybody's not going to be surprised by little old SMU again?
I think they're going to be good again. Rhett Lashley is a proven winner. Kevin Jennings, I think, is really going to have to use those moments, even going back in the ACC championship game where he had not his best game. TJ Parker had the sack fumble. We know what he did in the college football playoff against Penn State. He's a really good player. And when he gets the eyes and attention of great coaches, one of the greatest, if not the great, in Nick Saban, you know that people are going to be looking at him with a different eye. He has one of his top players coming back who was lost at the earlier portions of last season in RJ Maryland. They lost a lot of firepower last year, but they were able to hit the transfer portal really hard. Rhett Lashley was very strategic and a scientist in terms of making the jump and making sure that they weren't taken by surprise. He got the hog mollies in terms of the guys up front on the offensive and defensive line, and he hit the portal really hard with them. So I expect no different in this year too. It's just really funny that they came into the ACC and they essentially said, we don't need your money. We're going to win. We're going to make the college football playoff and we're going to make some noise. But Rhett Lashley is one of the great guys. And knowing that you have an answer at quarterback, because with a lot of these schools, whether it be in the ACC or any of the power conferences, if you have an answer under center, as well as making sure that the offensive line is set, you're going to be able to make some noise in the conference and try to have a run into one of those 12 selections.
Justin Walters, ACC Network, with us on 365 Sports. We've discussed how the Big Ten and the SEC have their thing, their whatever you want to call it, alignment. Why
Super
does
League.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that too. They would love that. Why hasn't the Big 12 and the ACC come up with something in a way to make sure some of their non-conference games are even better so they get to play each other?
Now, when you're framing that, I think the ACC schedules really tough non-conference games.
Is.
So I just think it goes back to what we mentioned about they have to win them. I thought about last year when you have the game like Nico Ilimaliava with Tennessee taking on NC State. NC State gets blown out in that game. The only ACC feather in the cap that we had in week 1 last year was Cam Ward and the performance that he had against Florida at the opening week. You have to have more performances like that. It can't just be like the ACC versus the SEC last year or in basketball where they were 2-14 in that challenge. And you have Clemson getting a huge win against Kentucky. You need to make sure it's more middle of the pack. So having more than one win. We mentioned FSU taking on Bama. FSU coming off a very heartbreaking end to the season, not making it to the playoff. And then last year, we know how it all ended with a historically bad loss. A lot of people are being put on notice. And Thomas Castellanos is coming in. They made sure that they got some dogs and some top receivers for him. So if FSU and the ACC want to make sure that they get more credibility, you're going to have to try to win that game against Bama. You have other opportunities when you also play Florida. So I just think it goes back to winning those big primetime games because you have good teams in the conference. I can't speak for the Big 12, but I do think that the ACC, if they don't win those games, then you can't cry wolf about scheduling other games or what type of opportunity you get into the college football playoff.
What is going to be this year's surprise team? I would say that last year was probably Syracuse, obviously, with Kyle McCord, shocked a lot of people. I think Boston College with Bill O'Brien, the way that they started out down list. Is there a team you see having that kind of juice this year that people don't see coming? I think people maybe saw a little bit of Georgia Tech coming if you watch Brent Key, so I wouldn't put them in that category either.
It's funny because I wanted to mention Georgia Tech, and I was high on them. Like, you saw them coming, but did we think that the old-fashioned hate was just going to be that thrilling of a game? And honestly, if a targeting call was called on at the end of the game, Georgia Tech wins that. Their schedule was a gauntlet. We said that from the get-go. that if they're going to even have a chance, while they could make some noise, that they're going to have to do their best to keep their head above water. That was a tough schedule. So I would say Georgia Tech in terms of national relevance, because I love what Key is doing. I'll go back to Louisville because I think they're a team that flies under the radar. I can't say Miami is going to take anyone by surprise. I'm still uncertain what Carson Beck is going to look like after that surgery. He should start throwing pretty soon based off of the last reports if he hasn't started yet. But yeah, I would say probably Louisville or Georgia Tech for national relevance, really making some noise, because Georgia Tech had moments last year, but I don't know if anyone expected them, knowing how banged up the squad was, to beat Miami in that game or even to have that type of performance against Georgia. It was thrilling, and I do think that they can continue to use that. Every single season, Brent Key has been able to add another domino and keep stacking them up, and I think this could be another stepping stone.
If he can actually have two arms that work properly, what do you think the upside is for Haynes King next year? I mean, to grit through it the way that he did last year was just so impressive, and to basically just become like a running, he's like at Navy or something, right? Because he's just so dinged up. But what do you think the upside is for a healthy Haynes King and all that he has around him?
If every quarterback in the conference is at full health, I'm drafting Haynes King number 2. I think that's his upside. He will be the best conference quarterback. He can go toe-to-toe with Cade Klubnik, but I would even take fully healthy Haynes King over Kevin Jennings right now. That's how high I'm on Haynes King. We've done film rooms and we've seen how strategic he is, but just the grit, you can't teach that when it comes to character. Mm-hmm. The man had one arm. He could barely throw 25 yards, let alone a hitch and go, and he's still running in there. People are hitting his shoulder. That's just grit, determination. That's Brent Key. It's like, run the ball, like straight up. And I love the way Haynes King is played this year, but I could see him definitely being one of the best conference quarterbacks, if not one of the best in the country, when he's fully healthy.
Justin from the Justin Walters ACC network with us. There was the offseason of so much controversy and angst or whatever because of teams in the conference wanting to sue the conference and all that back and forth that dominated quite a bit. Has it been a nice breath of fresh air that there hasn't been that now that they've got things at least together, it appears, for right now?
This seemed inevitable. This is what we're all going to come to. Kumbaya. Everyone is happy, at least for the time being. And I think the way the new payment structure is based off of who's going to get the most views for the top college football games, and then that is how the money is going to be allocated and distributed. I think everyone's fine with it now. But I don't think it affected me at all. It was just the elephant in the room. It's like, all right, keep moving.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, Justin, I'm an FSU alum. And the last 18 months have been an emotional roller coaster that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Have they done enough roster building to compete for the conference legitimately? Or if fans say that, is that maybe a little bit too lofty given how hard their roster fell off after 2023?
Man, that's really tough. I would say they've done enough to have over a 500 record. Mm-hmm. Personally, I don't know how you feel about Thomas Castellanos, but as a part of our ACC football road trip last year, it was myself and EJ Emanuel and Tom Luganbill. We got a chance to go out to Boston College, and everyone remembers how highly TC, or now it's not even Thomas, it's just Tommy, however he's going, was speaking about Bill O'Brien. I remember game 4 into the season looking at the rushing yards, and if you just look at how many rushing yards Castellanos ended with at BC compared to the year before when everyone was referring to him as a diet Kyler Murray, they took away from his superpower. I think now that he's reunited with his former coach as the OC in Malzahn, I do think that you have a really good quarterback, and time will tell in terms of how many wins you can get. But if you want to, I've looked at the schedule, maybe 8 wins could be solid right now. The question is what you're going to be able to do in those primetime games, starting it off against Alabama and ending it against Florida. Those are going to be some real big question marks. Can you get the job done? And then you also have a game against Clemson this year. It's going to be tough, but it's not going to be last year, if that makes you feel better.
Well, look, there's nowhere to go but up. I
Yes.
mean, right. I mean, it was, I will tell you, it was a shock to the system as a fan. I didn't expect them to be 13-0 again, but I'll just tell you that like 2-10, it was calculus I couldn't do. Like I just, in my head, like, how does this happen so fast? How much of it do you think was outside of they had some talent problems, clearly, but it shouldn't have been that bad? Was they let 2023 completely break their spirit for 2024?
No question.
Yes and no. So I like Norvell, and I used to work in Tennessee, and I saw the job that he did even at Memphis. But we have to remind ourselves about the firepower that they lost, and not just firepower on the field, but true leaders in the locker room, people that were getting after the pass rush. Now, I understand coming into this season, despite having no Jared Verse or Braden Fisk, that there were people out there saying that this is still going to be one of the best defensive lines in the country. And they didn't show that in Ireland against Georgia Tech, and they didn't show that every week after. There weren't even like stretches of dominance. But you lost so many star players. You don't have a Keon Coleman. You don't have a Johnny Wilson where you can just toss it up. There were so many great moments. You don't have a quarterback like Jordan Travis who has been through the system. There were even FSU fans, and you can share your thoughts because I remember him at Oregon State and having a chance to see him in person, as well as Damian Martinez. The structure that was set around DJ Uiagalelei was great. While a lot of people were frustrated thinking that why would you try to invest into someone who we already saw signs of when he was at Clemson and it didn't work out, there was some type of hope, but I don't know if I would go as far to say the heartbreak. It's easy to lean into that storyline because for a season that was historically amazing, and then you get the cord pulled out at the very end as a conference champion and you don't make it in, even though your defense does a hell of a job with their third string against Louisville, it hurts. And that storyline does fade away and then reappear itself into the next season. But I do think that another part of it was not having the guys in the locker room the previous year. They graduated and had so many people that left to go to the NFL draft, those dudes. And that was the reason that also led to the turmoil of last season.
Justin, last thing. There are so many storylines in college athletics. Obviously, football, SEC meetings, and the Big 12, among others, are having theirs this week. There's the college football playoff, the give and take. There's the transfer portal, should there be one or two. There's all sorts of stuff. How refreshing will it be just to get to the damn season and talk football?
I can't wait. Like, please, let's just play some ball. All the speculation, like it's cool to do the previews. I will say the one thing I do enjoy is when we get an opportunity to see the players in person. I remember having opportunity last year for the ACC football kickoff, being on stage with Cam Ward, and we heard all this stuff like the bravado, the swag, and he did have a lot of it, but it was a very chill confidence. He was very comfortable about himself, and he even spoke and in many ways foreshadowed one of the best games that we saw last year, and many would say that they should have lost, but Miami versus Virginia Tech because he's cousins with Kyron Drones. But still, I think those moments are what I look forward to. But after ACC football kickoff and camp is done, like, let's just play some ball and stop the speculation, because everyone right now, optimism is at an all-time high. But who could have saw Syracuse having that season last year? Truly, like, who could have saw Louisville losing to Stanford at Stanford? There were just so many moments, or Cal having that game against Miami. But yeah, let's just play some ball. But still right now, I'll soak up this period.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why hypotheticals should not decide who gets into this or that. Let them play the damn game. Thanks for your time, Justin. Great to have you on. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Justin Walters, the ACC Network, with us on 365 Sports. And good to get a feedback from him. Thanks to Colin, by the way, for setting that up for us from the ACC Network Media, Colin Bradley Media Network Department. Here's an interesting, I just saw this. I want to share this with you as we break. We'll have Sam Kahn next. Tom Fornelli, national writer. The scene. We enter a dark room. The sounds and light of a lit fireplace fill it. In the background, we can see a giant pile of money being counted by the Big Ten and the SEC. One says to the other, it's not fair the way they treat us.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely how it comes across sometimes. And I think if you're not ever having stood outside of that room to look into it, you've always just sort of had the inside the room view. You don't understand why people are like banging on the windows and complaining about it. And you just dismiss them. But I think a lot of people in college football are yelling through those windows best they can of like, you're ruining the game. Like you've gotten a lot. How much more do you need to where there's a breaking point? And man, I think these Sankey comments are really interesting because I've seen one very popular college football podcaster in particular running around on social media like, everything's still great. Y'all are crazy that you think it's not as cool as it was. Like, I was at Georgia, Ohio State last year. It was packed to the gills, and I was like, dude, I was at every Baylor game last year. Fans do not care as much here or in Stillwater or in Lubbock or wherever. There's still going to be sold-out seats, but I see like a lot of damage control from people whose livelihoods depend on college football trying to spin this S like we don't know that it's S. And I'll tell you what, I understand fully that we do a podcast 99% based on college football, but I'm not going to kiss any boots, and I'm not going to sit there and act like everything's all hunky-dory to make me feel better about like my job security. No, it's a mess right now, and you have people that want to make it even messier and more disinteresting called TV executives or conference commissioners, or we need to call who it is, the school presidents.
Yeah.
The schools are the ones that are telling Greg Sankey to go up and make these comments, but we're just firing machine guns at his head. And look, some of it's deserved. He's been a little pompous at times. He can be, some type of way to where you don't always see eye to eye with him. But ultimately, I think I just read reports that the SEC schools were sitting there telling him after this weekend, they think they're getting screwed.
Yeah, that we're giving up too much.
They're not getting enough.
Yeah.
And it's just like those are the people that are sitting there driving this thing. So I'm not going to pretend like it's all hunky-dory, and I don't blame people that have their interest wane. Like, I still love the sport. I, though, understand that it's not what it was, and it will never be that again. But I know that it's something different that still has the same heart and is still beating the same way. It's just that a lot of the other parts are a lot different, and the brains behind the operation are a lot different, and the greed's coming to the forefront more than ever. But yeah, to sit there and try to act like I've seen this, I don't know, it feels like almost damage control this weekend because there's so much complaining and there's so much that just is just too much input that you kind of need to like, no, it's still cool. We're still good guys. It's still just as good as it was. And it's like, well, if it is, it's not going to be here pretty soon because the changes they're going to continue to make are just going to only further take it down a path. So, no, we don't have to line up and say, because we cover college football, this is awesome. This is great. I also am not totally against the expanded playoff. I'm against the way that they're trying to orchestrate the expanded playoff. So, again, I think there's conversations that need nuance, but this weekend was really interesting to see some people get, in my opinion, kind of insecure about the greater state of things, whether it be a Sankey or commentators or whoever. And so it's the offseason, that's for sure. Everything will be fine once the season gets here, but we got a very interesting summer on tap, for better or worse.
The only thing that would make it better, and it won't happen, but if the Big Ten and the SEC went after each other.
Well,
like, oh my
that'll
God.
be down the line once they've killed off everybody else and they get bored and they're like, well, now what do we have to do? Well, now we got to start killing off each other, I suppose. I don't know.
Then you get the whataboutism of like, well, we have Rutgers, you have Vanderbilt,
But I will say, like, listening to him, he's a great guest that I know we'll probably talk to again before the season starts. And it is fun to talk about football, but I always kind of chuckle when you bring that up because it's like, you just did 45 minutes on all of the legal stuff. And they're like, isn't it great to talk about football? It's like, yeah, it is. It is great.
Well,
but we already poured over.
People, but there's people who get, I do. I know we do, but we would be foolish not to go
we have to,
into the start of the show.
But
it will be nice when that ends.
I know it's just funny that you say that, though, because we just done an hour and a half that's not on that. It will be nice. That's stating the obvious, though. And we are getting closer and all of that. But don't get me wrong. I know I totally understand people's emotions, for better or worse, having waned on the game. I'm not trying to convince you you're not seeing what you're seeing like some other people are doing. And if it rubs you the wrong way, then I totally get that. There's some things I definitely don't like. Ultimately, I still love college football. It's still my number one. I'm not going to say they're not walking down a road where it's impossible to turn me away eventually. They've come a lot closer than I ever thought they could, but I'm not there yet. And so I'm just adapting, guys, is what I'm doing. And I think that's what a lot of fans are having to do. And some of them don't want to do that, and that's understandable. But for those that do, It's just different. But ultimately, the core you hope is the same once the ball's kicked off.
Well, and again, there are meetings going on this week, so a lot of all that is out. Even more about discussions of power struggles, turf wars, whatever you want to call it. The Big 12's having theirs too, and we'll hopefully get some comments from Brett Yormark or others within the conference this week too. All right, when we come back, Sam Kahn, he's kind of in a mode where he was at corporate meetings. He was going to have a couple of weeks off, but we can't help it. So I asked Sam if he could come on early. He'll be next from theathletic.com. This is 365 Sports. Don Chimador and Coffee Beans. I went by there, I guess it was Thursday last week, and Cheyenne and, of course, Joshua were there. Went by to get some cigars that I could have a chance to smoke cigars when I was on the golf course playing over the Memorial Day weekend until we got deluged and flooded basically with what came down on Monday. But they're going to have a Lone Star Cut and Light event, June the 12th, 5 until 8 at Don Humidor. It's a 48-foot walk-in humidor. They have a lot of other great products as well, including gummies for you if you want to maybe calm your head down a little bit at night without feeling like you've been drugged. Bad days, it's a package of gummies that for real THC, it's for really like chronic pain that you can have, pipes and ground coffee beans and whatever else. But they have this taco truck will be there. Bear Arms Brewery will be there. Reps from the following brands of cigars that are all Texas flavor, from McAuliffe, the Mayfin to Roma Craft. They're looking forward to it, and you should too. June the 12th from 5 until 8 at Don Humidor, a Lone Star Cut and Light featuring the Texas brand cigars just inside or between Valley Mills Road and Richland Drive in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC. An equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Sam Kahn he's a grinder, very loyal. He's trying to take time off, and I'm not going to let him do it.
Hey, no, look, I'm glad we got Sam today because Texas Monthly just released the top 50 barbecue joints, and Sam and I need to do a 365 Sports athletic collab that somehow ties college football into all of this. So I'm just saying, you tell your bosses, I'll tell ours, that you and I are going to, like, we're going to hit all 50 or something. I don't know. We'll get a bus. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we'll work at the details later. If all they have to do is tell us yes and give us money.
Leave it to Paul to discuss the most important story of the day.
Yeah.
I actually, you guys have Max Olson on. I texted him yesterday, like, hey, just know tomorrow the list is coming out. And of course, the first text I got from anybody today was from Max with a link to the top 50 list. Shout out to Brisket and Rice, which is like 3 miles from my house, which made the list. I knew it was going to, because it has been drawing crowds here recently, and they're actually moving a few miles away, but not too far from my house. But that was dangerous, having a top 50 barbecue joint, almost not quite walking distance, but not much further than walking distance from my house.
All right, so you're coming off corporate meetings with the Athletic, obviously up in New York, and you and I text last night, and I said, "Did you see some of Sankey's responses or whatever?" And this is part of a turf war. What was your take on what some of the quotes or what you heard him say?
Can I cuss on the show?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
It was a crock of shit is what it is. I honestly, look, some of what Greg says is right, in that he was waxing poetic about, well, how they wanted to move fast with the 12 team and then I got delayed. That's true. I do feel like some of this is pettiness from the whole alliance rebuff that happened after they tried to ram the 12 team through in 2021, and then the realignment happened with Texas and OU, and then everybody had to put a pause on it. I thought that was not a smart move. I thought we should have just went ahead and did it, and then of course we ended up in the same result more than a year later anyway. So to me, it feels like there's still some resentment for other conferences from that, and you could tell that tone from his voice ever since that the years past. Well, we were on board and doing it. We didn't have to do this, but we decided to get on board, and then everybody stalled. It's like, he's not wrong about that, but it's still very petty to hear 4 years later still be complaining about it. And what I don't like is the condescending nature of which he says, I don't need to be lectured by the good of the game. Clearly you do, because you are trying to stack the deck for your conference. And I'm not saying that you're wrong in that, because that's your role as a commissioner. You're trying to do the best that you can for your conference, but don't act like what's best for your conference is congruent with what's best for everybody, because it's not. What's best for everybody is inclusion. And so to me, if you go to 16, there's only two formats that make sense. It's either give every conference, and I don't mean just power conferences, I mean every FBS conference, a bid and make the rest at large, or just go 1 through 16 with no automatic qualifiers. To me, that's the only two formats that make sense. Anything that guarantees multiple bids for a conference is dead on arrival, in my opinion, as far as fan interest goes, because the more you gamify 4 SEC teams or 4 Big Ten teams, it ultimately means, yes, you're going to include the best teams, but you're also going to exclude some really good ones in other conferences because of it.
Sam, the commission went out the window, or at least temporarily last week, when they heard Cody Campbell was like, hey, look, I know you think that I'm, kind of this big money dude who only thinks about that, but he was talking about equal distribution money-wise of TV rights and all of that. And this is a dude who has the president's ear, who has a lot of politicians' ears, because he's donated a lot of money to politicians. Do you think that sent a genuine scare through the Big Ten and SEC of like, oh, this guy has influence that we also have, and they didn't have that before?
It's kind of funny how the gears shifted on that presidential commission after people started realizing what Cody was really talking about. To me, because it smelled like, if you read Brandon Marcello's story of CBS 247 last week, I think he dove into a little bit of how it fell apart, and the Big Ten, the SEC being a little wary of those stances. When you heard Nick Saban trying to downplay it, it made me wonder if the SEC brethren got to Nick Saban and said, hey, some of what you're going for makes sense, but some of what this other guy's talking about, not best for us, because we know they disagree on who you should play.
because Cody wants to be inclusive and include everybody. Nick Saban wants to include just only the Power Four and say, hey, Power Four should only play Power Four and things like that. And so Saban obviously is going to have a perspective from the SEC, from one of the most powerful conferences. And I do think that had a really big influence and pushback from Big Ten, the SEC, because, again, they're going to want what's best for their leagues, not necessarily what's best for everybody.
Sam Comm with us, theathletic.com. Clark Williams, did you see his response to Sankey saying the coordinated efforts of the press releases? And just again, I texted him. I said, Clark, that kind of cracked me up a little bit. He goes, but we didn't do that. We didn't get on the phone and go 3, 2, 1, send, And I do. That means nothing in the big picture, but I do like the way at least there are at times some fireback type comments that, hey, we're not just here for you to just run all over us, even though in some cases it could appear to be that's the case.
Yeah, and that's the point I was making the last time we talked with you guys was I think the Big 12 and the ACC could stand to cooperate more on this front because their interests are similar, because neither one of them want to be railroaded by the Big 10 and the SEC, and they want to be included in the playoff. And yeah, it'd be better if they use their power more often, specifically the commissioners, not so much Clark. I think but having Clark as a voice being willing to speak, I think is good, because anybody who's willing to speak on behalf of the conferences that are not of the favorite status can help delay any consolidation of power amongst the two big ones. But yeah, I think it's important to have the diversity of perspective. I think it's funny that Greg Sankey also said that, well, he's often the one speaking about these issues. Well, that's because he's the head of one of the most powerful conferences, and seems happy to speak his mind on all of it. And I think it's disingenuous to think that he doesn't realize that he's shaping the format, or shaping the discussion, or shaping the conversation nationally with things that he says, because he absolutely is. When he says things like back in the fall, when the playoff, we hadn't even started the playoff, when we were talking about the contenders of the teams, and he was saying, well, we're going to be watching really closely what the selection committee does. Like, dude, we know what you're doing. You're sending a message that if you don't like how they pick the teams, that you're going to push for a format change. And that's exactly what's happened. They didn't like that Alabama got left out. They didn't like that they didn't get another SEC team. So here we are pushing for a format change to get more teams in.
Sam, there's some interesting comments coming out of SEC meetings right now. One of them I just saw, Joe Castiglione, the CFP selection committee's role is not to send messages, but the outcome of their decisions do. There was another quote from Scott Strickland just a second ago that basically said, and I'm trying to find it right here again, a committee is not ideal to choose a postseason. I question whether it is appropriate for college football. So that's a couple of comments in the last 15 minutes about the committee itself. What do you think the talk is going on around the meetings right now? Obviously, something to do, you would think, with the selection committee. And what do you think, if they have their way, that change would also look like? We going back to computers? What are we doing here?
You know what they want? They want to stack the committee with a bunch of former SEC and Big Ten folk, right? Let's be real. No, I do think taking subjectivity out of it, at least in some mechanism. That's why I've always been a advocate of leaving conference champions in, because there is no subjectivity about that. You win your way in. So if you had 10 conference champions in, or even if we want to stick with just the power conferences plus a group of 5, group of 6, that there's no subjectivity on that. It is you win your way in, with the exception of the one group of 5, group of 6 team is you'd have to rank the highest one. Then you have the subjectivity of the rest of them. If you want to go no subjectivity at all and all objectivity computer rankings, I think that's a slippery slope, because we did that with the BCS, and that had people complaining for 15 years that led us to a 14 playoff. So there's a happy medium. I don't think the NCAA basketball tournament has this figured out. There's 32 or 34 conference champions, and the rest are at large. And guess what? We bellyache about the 69th team on Selection Sunday. Okay, so bellyaching's never going to go away about who gets left out. But when you reduce subjectivity by giving a real qualification path, then we have less of this. It doesn't dominate the conversation as much. I can promise you nobody's talking about the 69th team that got left out of the basketball tournament right now, like we're talking about Alabama getting left out of the playoff last fall or last winter, which was absurd to me that we're still talking about that. like we're talking about a 3-loss team that got hammered by Oklahoma, that got beat by Vanderbilt. We're not talking about a team that went 11-1 and got left out. So the fact that we're still debating that, to me, speaks to the lack of refinement in the system that I think we tweak a little bit.
Also a team in the last format that got in over a 13-0 team.
Yes.
So like they have nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
Like it didn't work out for you one time and now let's burn it down. Like that is the ultimate take your ball and go home, like whiny thing about it. I also kind of caught the vibe from Sankey that he's a little tired of being the only one who takes the bullets, especially since the AQ plan is not his plan. As a matter of fact, he seems to like more the other way because he can get 5 or 6 as opposed to AQs, where that chance at 5 or 6 gets reduced because now you have to give one to other team, or a couple more to other teams, which he doesn't want. I think he's a little miffed at Tony Petitti for not also backing his own plan very publicly.
Tony's the genius here. He's like, he throws it out there and he's just like, lets everyone else discuss it. And the thing is whenever you see Greg Sankey somewhere, if you ask him to talk, he's happy to talk. And so that's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in that you get to get your agenda out there and you get to set the conversation. It's a curse in that you become the whipping boy and you become the target for everybody when they don't like what you're saying. So I do think for the SEC and the Big Ten, I think going straight, no automatic qualifiers 1 through 16 would be better for them. And honestly, I think it'd be better for almost everyone. The only one that I don't think it would be great for is group of 5, group of 6. But even then, most years you're going to have one of those teams reach the top 16. So I think you're going to have multiple teams in the Big 12 in that top 16. You're going to have multiple teams in the ACC in that top 16. And you're certainly going to have, you guys ran the numbers earlier, and I saw someone posted the Big 10 and SEC numbers. If you did it that way, they're going to always get the most in if you do it that way. So I don't see a problem doing that. I would prefer something that is either simple like that or something that is a little bit objective when we talk about automatic qualifiers. I don't like the multiple automatic qualifiers, which feels like the Champions League in soccer and European soccer, which is a great event, by the way, which I'm a huge fan of, but I don't want to necessarily recreate that here. And it takes so much explanation for the fans. Like we were still explaining the playoff to the fans this year. Like, okay, well, here's why this team is in and here's why this team gets a bye. Make it simple, make it accessible for everybody.
By the way, good for you. I saw Joseph Duarte's tweet, sports journalism workshop with staffers from the Cougar Shorts Sports and UH Coug TV. You were there among others to go back, give back to the profession that you're a part of, and also give the younger people a chance to understand what you may have gone through and what this is all about, what you do for a living.
Yeah, I just went and sat there and talked about what not to do and that pointed to do. No, I'm kidding. No, it was. I'm not heavily involved anymore in University of Houston sports journalism program. There was a time where I was for about a decade, probably from 2012 or 2010 to 2020. It kind of that kind of went away over the years, just not for no particular reason. It's just kind of circumstantial. But Joseph Duarte, who's on the beat at University of Houston there, has had this discussion with me a few times about, hey, we should really get the people who work in the student media at University of Houston together to do a workshop with them. And I was fully on board. And so he organized that today. They had it actually up at the Houston Chronicle building today. And there was about a dozen of those students who all worked across Coug TV, the Cougar newspaper, Coug Radio. And it was really cool to get to visit with them. I always enjoy doing that. And I always say I'm here in this business because there were people who are in the position I am in now who were helpful to me when I was at that stage. You know, when I was 22 years old and about to graduate from University of Houston, John McClain, legend at the Houston Chronicle, of course, a Baylor grad, took the time out to have lunch with me and listen to me and give me tips and advice. And there are so many more that I worked with at the Chronicle, that I worked with at ESPN, and even that I work with to this day at The Athletic, that have been gracious with their time and their help to help me advance in the industry and get better. And I think it's only right to pay it forward to the next generation to make sure that our industry is in good hands.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Go enjoy some time off, I hope. Block my number for at least a couple of weeks. We'll see you for sure in Frisco at Big 12 Media Day. Sam Kahn, The Athletic, with us on 365 Sports. Craig, you brought up Scott Strickland. We've mentioned Sankey and others. And Trev Alberts said he'd like to get to 9 SEC games, assuming
His
playoff
opinion doesn't
format
matter.
changes.
His opinion does not matter.
Yeah, no, it is. They did walk in the door like they were going into one of these political conventions with everybody trying to be on the same wavelength.
I wonder too in the social media era if those guys don't feel like they're bigger deals than they used to when
Probably.
they were just nameless, faceless athletic directors for the most part, and now they're like they themselves trying to be characters, and you have the media trying to be more characters as well, and it just makes everything feel even weirder than it already did. I think there's probably something to that, because they do come across more like politicians now than just running their schools. It's like. Yeah, Trevor Alberts believes that because politically he needs to believe that because of the conference and the blah, 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 blah. But does he really believe that? I doubt it. So it feels the same as listening to any number of politicians that pop up on my TV screen. But what a run.
The thing is that the Big Ten and the SEC, you feel like I feel a little less that they can be genuine because of that. Now the other ones that are getting screwed, like. There's where you kind of find out like where people feel when you're like,
more the man on the street.
Yeah, you're like man on the street interview is like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, you know what I think about this? This sucks.
Yeah, and that's the leadership. So yeah, I mean, Yormark, his opinion weighs about the same as the man on the streets, as opposed to the politicians that obviously will have some big say in whatever happens. But yeah, here's the deal. I'm not anti-SEC. The team I rooted for is in the SEC. So, I mean, I'm not like anti the conference, and I don't want to make everything anti them. So for people watching, I can only speak for myself, really, at least. I'm not anti-SEC. I do think there's some things over the years that have developed that are problematic, and that's very much driven by ESPN, for example. But I also think that in particular, they're meeting right now, and that's why they're all over the headlines.
Sure.
So we got to
absolutely.
keep that in mind for people who are like, they're talking. They're saying a lot. You got all these athletic directors that are coming out. Like all of a sudden they're talking about, what did I just bring up? The playoff committee itself. And you've got them talking about strength of schedule, and you got them responding directly, calling out the Big 12 and the ACC in Greg Sankey's case. So that's why they're on the front burner as much as they are today, is because they provided a lot of interesting things to discuss out of their meetings. And then the ACC and Big 12 and Big 10 will have all of their meetings, and I think those will have things that come from those. But this is the biggest and the loudest in the room, and they're the most popular, and so it's getting a lot of play.
A massive media contingent. By the way, from Thomas, to be fair, league commissioners are there to advocate for their conferences, which is not always the thing that's best for the game.
And I think we've tried to say that every time we've talked about something like this, is that Greg Sankey's only doing what Greg Sankey's supposed to be doing for his schools. You just hope that somewhere in there's also the human being Greg Sankey that really does want to do what's best for college football and is even like pushing back a little bit. But yeah, you're right. Ultimately, he's just doing his job. But it's one of those things where you're like, but there is a human element to this. It doesn't have to be just cutthroat capitalism all the time.
They also don't have to be mutual. I think that's the thing, is I'm not an anti-Big Ten or SEC. I'm just pro common sense. And I don't like narratives that are built out over these, political things that they are, because they've become very political. I would say that what's good for college athletics is good for everybody. Yeah. And that's an economic theory on everything else, is that, sometimes you do have to sacrifice a little, but it's better long-term gain. If they keep marching ahead without regard to everybody else, eventually they're going to find themselves alone on an island, and they're only going to be.
I don't think they care.
See, they should care, because that's not a place that they really want to be either.
Well, that's when you have people who are making decisions for right now and are not thinking about 20 years from now, because Greg Sankey's not going to be here in 20 years. So as long as he gets his Super League or his 17 auto bids or whatever it is that they're looking for, then that's fine.
Like he said,
but that's his job.
They got 13 bids to the baseball tournament, and he said we should have had 14, and there's probably one that should have gotten in, and the Big 12, of course, is going to have their contingent
never
too.
enough. It's never. You give 14, we should have had 15.
Yeah, no, and
you
there's
give
only
15, we should have had 16.
By the way, wanted to say thank you to Kasten. I think it's Kasten Waither, a University of Houston fan in Germany, who wrote all of us an email from Northern Bavaria. We'll have a little bit of a note about what he thinks about college football and the way things are. but I wanted to say thank you before we got too deep in the show. That it's a very nice lot of opinions on college football, the playoffs, and more.
Well, guten Tag.
When we come back, Craig Smoak with Off the Radar. A little bit later on, Chris Williams. He covers Iowa State, but also the Big 12 when it comes to Cyclone Fanatic and more. And this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Fastest growing pizza brand in America. 5 locations here in Waco. And it wasn't that long ago when they weren't even to be known. But now 5 locations. Hewitt, Robinson, Woodway, China Spring, and Belmead. Bob Mock has been in the pizza business for a long, long time. My first ever experience was I delivered pizzas for a company back when I was a senior in high school. Made some pretty good money between my senior year and freshman year in college, and also came back in the summers and drove and delivered pizzas, enjoyed the business, got to know a lot about it, and I'm always intrigued by the businesses that deliver pizzas to your front door, and they are all really good. Marco's Pizza, though, pizza lovers get it, marcos.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McClain County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back into the show here, and time for a little Off the Radar as we get into some of the stories that we have not touched on today, which is pretty much every other story, because we spent a lot of time talking with guests and amongst ourselves about just the ongoings of SEC meetings and all of the things that have spilled out of that and led to plenty of topics about college football. I got a couple notes on the sport outside of that, though, and a couple notes on the postseason going on in the professional ranks as well. But for fans of last year's return of NCAA, or I should say EA Sports College Football 25, I don't feel quite the same buildup as I felt last year when it was coming back after so many years away and every little thing was like a big thing, right? And now everything's pretty much been announced the same, but it's just all kind of like, okay, yeah, cool, all right. You know, and for the people that play it, it's a lot of like, well, what about this and what about that and what about this? How deep did you get into the game, actually, Paul?
I'm deep in, buddy.
Oh, are you? Okay.
I'm 25 years into a dynasty that I'm about to retire. I'm about to retire.
How can you have a dynasty if you're 2-10?
I mean, the thing is, you build it out. Like listen, I ripped that team down to the rivets.
Okay.
Like after in the dynasty mode, they'll have guys and you can talk them into not transferring. After that first season with that roster from last year, all these guys wanted to transfer, and I was like, GTFO, fine, go wherever you want. Don't want you, don't need you. So I've built up a powerhouse.
Well, the game is returning this year, and it's going to be around. I mean, now we're in the era where you don't have to worry about not paying players and all of that. And so one of the big announcements last summer that everybody is much looking forward to, and I think one that will maintain its excitement level every year, is the cover every single year for the new video game. And the covers unveiled today. This is the primary for EA College Football 26. And there you see a couple of studs. There with Ryan Williams, wide receiver at Alabama, as well as Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith. So they go with the 2-star wide receivers from two of the biggest programs in the country as the, I guess, base cover for the college football game. And there in the back, you see them getting as much representation as they possibly can for various schools. How about Kennesaw State, the worst team in all of college football, the worst program right there? They're actually on the cover. What do we got?
They're between FSU and Miami.
Is that FSU? Okay, I was wondering who that. I
FSU
can't see
and
from
Miami,
my spot. So UNC, A&M, Miami, Notre Dame, Arizona State. We got somebody in purple that could be about anybody, TC Northwestern, but LSU, Oregon, Michigan, Texas, Auburn, Ohio State, et cetera, Ole Miss. I'm sure everybody's done that game where they're trying to see, like, is that our color purple there in the right? Or is that was that Air Force maybe in the tie? I don't know. You can't tell all the way on some of them, but there is the base cover. Any thoughts on Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams being the cover duo?
I think this is brilliant for them, marketing-wise. Even though these guys may not be on the cover next year, they'll both be in the game next year too. So you got 2 years with these guys because they are not draft eligible as true sophomores.
They're not unless they want to test the system.
You will have you can possibly and I don't think there's any reason to believe that both these guys won't be at least two of the several Bolitnikoff finalists. With I think Jeremiah Smith has a chance to be in New York. Maybe a little bit more so than Ryan Williams, although they're both very, very good. But yeah, I think that's a good idea to have both those guys on it, just for the fact that you've got guys now who are going to be in the game for more than 1 year, and you know that, as opposed to before, throw up Quinn Ewers on the game. Well, you've got maybe two with him, but he's probably likely.
You got to do this now because you never know. Well, Herschel Walker, we're not going to vote for him as a freshman. He's already going to win. But you got to, or Adrian Peterson. Get them when they're there because you never know. Hopefully these guys are healthy for the next 15 years. But I like the fact they split these two up.
Yeah, and last year, you'll remember, it was Travis Hunter, and it was Quinn Ewers, and then Donovan Edwards. And I don't know, that
didn't work out for Edwards, did it?
It didn't work out for Donovan Edwards. No. Travis Hunter won the Heisman, so that was a good call. And then obviously Ewers and the Longhorns made the playoff. So going with 2 instead of 3 here. So I think that's something pretty cool. And both those dudes are just absolute freaking studs. Future first-round picks, barring just something totally unforeseen. That's a safe bet to make right now is those two hearing their name called sooner rather than later. So there is the regular cover for College Football 26. And then there was also the unveiling of the deluxe cover. How many people can we fit to satisfy everybody on this cover? And you see the two main cover guys there, right there, front and center, but they are joined by other current players, by former players, by current coaches, by mascots. And I've found that in dealing with Google lately, their AI is wrong just as much as it's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was trying to find if somebody had just put a list out of everybody that's on this cover. And I got a list through one of my Google searches, and I want to make sure that it's right. But just in case, I'm just relying and hoping that they got everybody that was mentioned on here. But let's go for it. Okay, well, I thought I had it somewhere else now. Maybe I don't. I just had a list, guys. Where did that go? Oh, okay. Here it is from ESPN. You got Reggie Bush on there. Tim Tebow's on there, Denard Robinson, Kirby Smart. You got Uga, got Kiffin on there. Looks like Lincoln Riley. Got Nussmeier, Sam Levitt, Kirby Smart, James Franklin, Ryan Day, Dan Lanning, and then all sorts of other people. So I know I'm probably leaving some out because I don't trust
Nicholas
the list.
Singleton is up there in the front row.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Lagway's on the cover as well.
Lagway, yes.
And I believe, did you say Bryce Underwood?
I did not.
I think that's Bryce Underwood, if I'm not mistaken.
I forgot what he looked like. I don't care about Bryce Underwood anymore.
I'm not sure. Like, there's a Michigan player there. I'm not sure who it is.
There's an Oregon cheerleader in the back left corner. Just
Good
random.
eye, Smokey.
Yeah. No, what you're looking out for.
You Where's Waldo the hell out of this one?
Yeah, I know.
And I can't seem to find that list now. Unfortunately, I guess it was in one of my. I closed the wrong. Okay, here we go. Kirby Smart, Marcus Freeman, Lane Kiffin, Ryan Day, James Franklin, Dan Lanning, Kenny Dillingham. Okay, as far as the coaches go. All right. Then as far as former cover stars, they've got Reggie Bush, Tim Tebow. Everybody moment for Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow.
Just no silence for his greatness.
Oh, sorry. No, I refuse.
Silence for his greatness. And there we go. Okay, Tim Tebow, Denard Robinson also on there. And then the current players, DJ Lagway, Bryce Underwood, Nick Singleton, Caleb Downs, Garrett Nussmeier, Sam Levitt, Cade Klubnik, Jeremiah Love, and then various other mascots and whatnot as well. So I think that's the full list. If I missed somebody, I apologize, but I think that's pretty much the deal. And so you've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 current players in college football, 12 when you count the
Wonder how much
the
they
main
got.
duo.
Wonder how much the cover boys got, the current players compared to the stars.
I don't know, but that's cool. Like, I kind of feel like doing the collage thing's a bit of a cop-out, but I also think it's probably the right thing to do because otherwise it would be the same as everything else, and it'd be like, who's Alabama's star this year? That'll be the cover guy, or Ohio State's or whatever. So there you have it. The covers now being unveiled for EA Sports College Football 26, and so that was released today, and that will be coming out later on this summer, and we'll see where it kind of, I guess, falls in line with sales compared to last year. It's a tall task to try and think they'll come anywhere close to the record sales they had for that video game.
Distance makes the heart grow fonder on that game.
Well, and the build-up was just totally different. I
Yeah.
mean, we were in the middle. We were trying to learn every single little detail about every single little aspect of the game. And now it's like, it's the game, and there's like going to be these tweaks, but there's the cover, and that's like the fun part that comes with that unveil every single year. That's something that I will actually look forward to. Meanwhile, Travis Hunter was on the cover last year. I want to say congratulations to him because I saw the headline where he got married to his fiancee, Liana De La Fuente. They got married as Jaguars are getting ready to start up training camp, and they got hitched in a ceremony in Chattanooga, Tennessee, just a month after the draft. The celebration, according to Yahoo, included the couple cutting the ribbon on one heck of a gift, it says in the article, a Brabus, and I know I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, XL800. A car, have you ever heard of the Brabus XL800? A car with a price tag starting at over $700,000. So he makes it known that it might have been Travis buying that for himself and then unveiling it, or it might have been a gift from, I don't know, somebody else, but that was just one of the things they took note of. And so Travis Hunter Sr., his father, was granted permission to attend by a judge as part of a supervised release from his drug conviction. Yes, Garrett?
I was going to say the car was a gift to his wife because it was her favorite car.
Okay. Did it say who it came from? Him?
It was from him.
Okay.
What brand was it? What's the brand?
Brabus.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. So, okay. Thank you for clarifying there. I didn't see that part of it. I just saw that in the article I'd read, it was a gift and they didn't know exactly from whom at that point.
I came across it on TikTok. That's how I found it.
That's what I'm missing out on, I guess, by not having the TikTok there. So that's one hell of a wedding gift. We'll say that.
I wouldn't say no to it if he married me.
No, probably not. But
I'm not saying I want to marry him, but if we're gonna, you better borrow me a car like that.
Yeah, it's a really nice car. So, anyways, we mentioned Hunter with the video game cover. I was going to mention that because that was out there swirling around as well, and especially interesting given how much hell that girl went through this offseason in the draft buildup. I don't know. I'm sure you caught it on TikTok, but not a lot of. I mean, a lot of people like wanting him to leave her, and she wasn't good enough, and now here they are getting married. So congratulations to the lovely couple, and good luck to to them on the new phase of life. And what a whirlwind 2025 must be for Travis Hunter, but in a good way, certainly. So, meanwhile, going to go on to some actual ongoings in sports when it comes to games. And we are getting down to the nitty-gritty in the playoffs as tonight we've got the Western Conference Finals Game 4 in the NHL, Edmonton and Dallas. In Canada, the Oilers up 2-1. And, the Stars got that first win, and they had to, mount a pretty good comeback there in the third period to accomplish that. And we talked Stars last Friday, right? And felt pretty good about the state of things then, Garrett, right? I mean, that was a big comeback and got that win, and you felt pretty good. And how are you feeling now that it's a 2-1 series in favor of Edmonton?
I feel horrible, honestly. Dallas has struggled to score for a few months now, and Mikko Rantanen was able to kind of stem that a little bit. I feel like personally that's what got them through the opening series with Colorado was the tear that he went on. But right now you have no production coming from Jason Robertson, which is exactly what happened last year in the playoffs. Wyatt Johnson can't seem to find it. Outside of that, they're just not there. They don't have the energy. Edmonton is playing faster than them. Stuart Skinner is significantly better than Jake Ottinger right now when it comes to between the pipes. And I know you've got Connor McDavid and the best player and all that, but even if they get past them, they don't have the physicality to beat Florida. So this is frustrating from a fan standpoint because you went all in. You've been building to this for about 3 years now. And when you think you have the squad to get over, you find out that it's just not there. It goes back to me. It's like Pete DeBoer, he's great in the regular season, but like when you get into championship times as a head coach, for whatever reason, he can't click and put it together. And I would like to know the comparison of a scoring drought in hockey compared to like a baseball batter in a slump, because to me, I don't see how anything necessarily changes. But yeah, dude, right now I'm not feeling it. I think the Stars are cooked.
So, getting beat pretty good the last couple of times out there, 6-3 last week. And then I had some families like, hey, we're getting up to watch the Stars and going to watch them on Sunday. A 6-1 loss. So, times are tough. Couple blowout losses. And now tonight they'll be back out there trying to avoid a 3-1 deficit. But in Edmonton, that starts at 7 o'clock on ESPN. And then meanwhile, that's the only game tonight in the NHL. And meanwhile, in the NBA, just the one game, but man, mighty interesting. Game 4, Knicks and Pacers. Knicks needed to win Game 3, had to win Game 3, and they did get the win in Game 3. So tonight, trying to even things up on the road in Indiana, 7 p.m. on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max, which it feels good to say once again. So a couple playoff games tonight, and the other sides will get back at it tomorrow. So there's a few things off the radar.
Yeah, I thought Oklahoma City was going to be in trouble, by the way, after Saturday night, but last night, not so much.
Hell of a game, though.
It was a really good game.
Yeah.
Really good game. I thought here's what happens. Emory talked noise during the last series, and then they got blown out by the Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, like, he didn't talk it to me. Who did he run across a Timberwolves fan, wherever the hell he is right now? And then talk noise, and then they got blown out. But last night was a great game. Anthony Edwards didn't shoot enough, though.
Yeah, hell of a game. The Stars, I said, Garrett, how does a team out shooting their opponent 37-24, getting beat 6-1? And he said, what'd you say?
Some explicits.
Yeah, you did. The text message back to me kind of caught me off guard. All right. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate very much. Off the radar when we come back, Chris Williams covers the Big 12. Also covers Iowa State, Cyclone Fanatic, and more. John McClain, Hall of Famer, Paul's Top 5, and Andrew Valade's poll results. This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Chris Williams, Cyclone fanatic, covers the Big 12, has his own podcast, and gave us time for ours. Appreciate it.
Hey, guys.
Chris, how you doing? And let's you've seen kind of the turf war, the message coming out of SEC Media Days. Big 12 started their spring meetings today. Well, how do you look at all of this like almost leading into a convention with everybody having their own, I guess, narrative right now?
Oh, man, that's loaded, dude. I could talk to you for 4 hours about what those crooks are trying to do down in Florida.
Well, go ahead. We've got 4. We'll go until 8 o'clock. That's fine. 9 o'clock.
I just, it's one of those things where, like, every problem that these guys are complaining about right now, it feels like that was self-created. A situation where at the end of the day, it kind of comes back to just human nature with me, guys. And unfortunately, most people look out for themselves before the greater whole. And like you look over the course of like the world history, it's like the greatest leaders, what do they all have in common, right? They look out for more than themselves, and they look out for the greater good. And it's just so rare. And what you've got right now, this has always been the problem with college athletics, right? Where schools look out for themselves, the coaches look out for themselves, the conferences look out for themselves. There's nobody who's ever looked out for the greater whole. And that's it's never been more prevalent than right now, where what these guys are going to do is they're going to say, we don't want this Super League. No, we want everybody to be, but they're going to keep sucking the revenue away from everybody else. And then nobody else is going to be able to survive. And then in like 10 years, they're going to be like, oh man, it's a real shame those other conferences couldn't keep up, like we really didn't want to do this, but now, we're going to keep all the money from ourselves and go and do our own thing. So it's like plausible deniability that it just, and then my other thing, all right, sorry. Now you guys got me going now.
No.
What happened to the Big Ten that I knew that had a spine that would stand up to these losers? That would, where's the Jim Delaney Big Ten that would, puff their chest? Because we used to have like a balance of power between the two, where you had the perceived rednecks down in the SEC, right? And then you had the elitists up north in the Big Ten. and they would kind of like balance each other out, and then wherever the Big 12 fit in and the ACC or whatever, and like it was like good. There was competitiveness there, and now it's just like, oh, great, this would be like China and Russia are teaming up now, right? That's how I look at it. The whole thing just sucks. I hate it.
Yeah. Well, and
sorry, I
asked.
asked.
Chris, I think it's like it's funny that I mean Sankey's the one who talks and Tony Petitti doesn't.
Yeah,
but
he's a coward.
Yeah, yeah. But Sankey gets mad about this and complains and all these things. Look, every other league has not gotten even the Big Ten in the 14 playoff and all that has gotten left out of it. Every team except you. You got 3 teams in last year instead of 4, and now you're questioning the very existence of the committee because it didn't work out for you one time in 11 years? That's insane.
I think the whole thing's a farce, too. I think the only thing that they care about are these stupid playing games that they want to bring, this new like tournament or whatever, so they can keep the revenue. I think that they are using the automatic bid thing is like because I think that they know – at the end of the day, they're probably going to get these teams in anyways. But what they want is that guarantee that they're going to have the 4 so that they can stage these stupid play-in tournaments with like their 6th place team. And remember, these are the same cowards that used to preach to us about the sanctity of the regular season, right? They all just talk in circles. And they don't have any money either. Everybody's broke in college athletics, but they're eating $300 meals, on the beach right now. So like the whole thing, it just makes me sick for the sport that I know we all love and grew up loving. And it's not the end of the world. I saw that Josh Pate said something like all this stuff's going to keep going. But the problem is, and you guys know this in Big 12 countries, like I'm an Iowa State guy, and like, let's say in a world where the Big 12 is off doing its own thing, my friends and like Iowa State people, they're not going to be like, oh, let's just pick an SEC team now. Like, that's not how it goes. Like, the betterment of the whole is a really big deal. Like, they're not going to – my friend across the street who roots for the Cyclones isn't going to be like, oh, okay, I'm an Alabama fan today. They won't watch. They really won't. We have the NFL for that. It's a better product. I'll watch that.
No doubt, Chris, and yeah, it's good to know.
I love what you just said.
Good to know that nobody's going to jump over and be a Hawkeye, right? I mean, that would just be
Absolutely not. Well, but that's what makes college athletics so great, right? Like we have these traditions, and like, oh, I met my wife on that campus, and my uncle went there, and like you don't most of the time you don't choose like which school you root for. You're kind of like born into it in a way, or you go to the college and it becomes a part of you. Like, for instance, like my mom was born and raised in South Carolina, grew up a Gamecock fan. I had multiple uncles who were professors there. So like I had this natural tie, like we always kind of watched them. I didn't just randomly be like, oh, Lou Holtz is there, I'm going to root for South Carolina one. Like it's not what happens in college athletics. So it's like this idea that we're going to go to this Super League and all of these people who watch the Mountain West, these Boise State fans, are just going to pluck a Big Ten team and start like it won't happen. It's going to hurt them too. But they are too stubborn and greedy to see it themselves.
Chris, I've seen your comments along these lines on Twitter and whatnot. And I know you don't suffer from any delusions of grandeur. You don't think that there's a path for the Big 12 to compete on the same level and make the same money. I think we're on the same page there.
No,
but
I don't.
I just don't. That's not realistic. And anything floating that idea, I just think is kind of a waste of time. So where do you see the Big 12's place now moving forward? What do you think about the league and just these moments where, Brett, your market's like, when do you call a bluff and when do you not? And when do you have power to maybe do something and when do you not? I mean, you're kind of at the mercy of everything, but we still want to see you fight. Like, so just how have you kind of watched the Big 12 evolve over these last couple of years, and what do you make of the league at this point it's standing in the bigger picture?
I just want it to have a chance, guys. Like that's all I care about. Like I'm not like, no, I don't think that financially it's ever going to be on the same path or perception wise as the SEC. That's not even what I'm asking for. But like, what I don't want is a predetermined, you suck going into every season, like, well, best case scenario, you're going to get 2. Like that. Like, imagine if we did that with the NCAA basketball tournament the last 50 years, where it's like every year there's going to be 6 leagues and they all have 10 participants, no matter how bad the league is, no matter how good the teams are, right? Like, that would ruin it for me. I loved Bob Bowlesby. I don't know many people who could say anything negative about the guy. I'm really glad it's your mark now, because I feel like the Big 12 really needs a dude who will say something to your face, lie to you, and shank you in the alley. Because that's what all these other guys are doing. They're all liars. And I'm not questioning like Brett's character. That's not what I'm trying to do. But he comes from a world of like really intense negotiations. And I don't think that Greg Sankey particularly intimidates Brett Yormark. And regardless of what I think of like the football, like to me, I do think there's an opportunity though, guys, going forward where these players still want to play. Mm-hmm. Like I think you're gonna have a ton of really good transfers that develop at Georgia and they get to their sophomore year and they keep bringing in transfers and recruiting over them, and they're gonna quote unquote drop down. And I think that's where our league really can thrive. And if you do that, like haven't we seen that with Big 12 basketball? They're not winning with one and done guys. They're getting really experienced guys who play well together. They play. Look at Baylor. Like, it's a great example of like Drew's maturation with that program over the years. And like they're way better now that they're not just living on the most talented guys. Like Scott always finds a way to get them to play together. And like, right? Like, look at like Kansas State last year. We all thought, oh, they're bringing it, but they didn't play well together, right? So, like, to me, that's where I think Big 12 football, like, you can still develop guys in that league because they're not going to be as transfer. You're going to lose some to the bigger leagues and money and all that. But I also think there's going to be this heap of really good talent that will quote unquote drop down. And that's where the Big 12 can pick it up and I think win some football games. I really, really, truly believe that. But again, what we can't have is like this predetermined outcome before any of the games have been played. What are we doing?
Chris, I agree. I think we're already starting to see it a little bit with, I mean, the like part of the reason that the SEC, while they're still ahead in their race, they're not Usain Bolting this to the goal anymore, is because if you've got a 5-star who's a sophomore who hasn't played yet because there's another guy at his exact position in front of him, well, then I might go play for Deion Sanders. I might go play for Matt Campbell because this guy and I came at the same time. We're both left guards. I've got to go somewhere they need a left guard. Still would love to be at Alabama, but bottom line is I'm not going to play at Alabama. So
have you ever met an 18-year-old recruit that doesn't think they're the best player on the planet?
No. That's because they're treated that way as soon as they walk on campus.
They all go into fall camp that first year thinking they're going to start, and then all of a sudden reality hits them, and they're like, "Oh, these other guys are pretty good too." And like eventually, like Iowa State has a couple wide receivers this year who they're probably undervalued because of what they just lost to the pros, and I don't know that these two guys are going to be that good. But I do think that it's a great example of what I'm talking. I think these guys are completely undervalued, like across the league, and it's perceived that they aren't any good. But it's amazing what a change of scenery and a little development can do for a 21-year-old sometimes. And while it might be enticing, like, oh, well, the SEC's base salary is more than that of a Big 12 school. Okay, that's cool. But eventually, like, these guys want to get to the NFL, and it's harder to do that when you're never playing or when you get this guy's a bench player. Like, eventually they want to – and we've seen it for years, like in college football, where these quarterbacks would drop down, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Blaine Gabbert's brothers in Miami of Ohio is an example that came to my mind, right, where these good players go down, and then they kind of just show back up, and they have a really nice 2-year career at the group of 5 level. And I don't want to just throw the Big 12. I'm not saying it's a group of 5 league. I don't believe that, but I think what we're seeing is just the whole sport is changing. And if that is perceived to be the top level, I think it's like a 1B type thing, but let's see how it develops, because we see this in basketball all the time right now. Like, just because you have 11 new players all from the portal doesn't mean you're going to win, even though they're the most talented. And that's where, like, I think Campbell, at Iowa State, listen, I don't know if they're going to like win it big and like go, but I also think that this is a massive advantage to him because of just the sustainability that he has. And like, it's a similar coaching staff every year. They don't get too fancy. Like Matt's teams are like, man, what is the floor for Iowa State now? Like 6-7 wins, where back in the day, like you would kill for that.
Yeah.
Right. So this will be an advantage to some players or some guys in here. But I don't know, like let's see it shake out. We don't need to predetermine everything, especially when you're the SEC and the Big Ten. You already have every advantage known to man. Now you want to stack the deck even more. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, great point on that. I was asking you about Campbell. He does have that. This thing is humming along. They've been on the precipice. They've been right there. Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, obviously, where they've been before. Is he just like, what is it like around Ames when he's around? How do people treat him? Or is he like a rock star? And that's opposite of everything he would want to be.
Yeah, no, he's just so well respected. That's the thing. He, the biggest compliment I can give Matt, and this goes beyond football, is everything that he says he stands for, he truly does. And you see that on a daily basis. Matt doesn't give his time to many people. Right, because if it doesn't have anything to do with winning football games, he generally doesn't want much part of it. But when he does give his time, it's the stuff that truly matters. He coaches his daughter's softball team. The charitable things that he's involved in really matter to him, and he is very, very well respected. It's not I wouldn't even call it like a rock star thing. Sure, people want their picture with him and they appreciate him and all of that, but it's very he's very stoic, I think, is the best way I would describe Matt. And his football teams play like that, right? Like we saw last year, like the I don't know if you guys remember the UCF game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they really shouldn't have won the game.
No,
but they just stuck with it, right? And I thought you mentioned that Oklahoma Big 12 championship game with Purdy and Hall, like they really were kind of out of that one, and somehow, like, there's so many of these games, these big games, where they just stand pat and stick with their core beliefs, and it usually works out for them. And that's, again, just like at this particular moment in college athletics, I like that for Iowa State, in the sense that there's so much uncertainty. As long as they can keep Matt, he provides that. He's kind of that rock, right, with that program. And as long as you have that, I think that your floor is going to be pretty high. Now, what is your ceiling? I don't know. But they've been darn close to winning Big 12 championships. And I like the fact, and this is developing, right, with everything going on in Lubbock with their money and BYU, and Iowa State's never going to win an arms race when it comes to money. But at least now it feels like they're punching at their own weight class, where, and you guys could probably attest to this too, like it just, like, it felt like for so many years, like the best case scenario for Iowa State was that you get a favorable schedule, and it lines up with like the top of a recruiting cycle, and let's go out and see what happens. Well, now, like, every week they can win. Like it not only can they win, but they might be favored in games that you never would have dreamed of. So it's just a totally different feel. But to me, everything around that program is just, it takes on the personality of Matt, and stoic is the best way I can describe him.
Also, I mean, they have, what he's done is no one else has done, is he's got a steady row of quarterbacks that have come in and been good for him. And now Rocco Beck kind of takes on that after, I'm sure that 2 years ago, everybody's like, oh my God, what's going to happen with this? We've got a guy who's gotten kicked out, and then, this guy, JJ Cole, isn't quite as where we want him to be. And, he was all touted, and then here comes Rocco Beck kind of out of nowhere. And he's just, he's got a chokehold on it. It's his, and he's the fire of that team. So the combo of coach and quarterback developer, maybe he's a little bit underrated in that nationally.
Yeah. And it doesn't end there, guys. they've got a string of 3 commitments. One is Connor Moberly. He'll be Rocco's backup this year. Alex Mansky, who's already on campus, came on. I believe he was a mid-year guy, and then this Jet kid out of Omaha, Nebraska, he just got an offer from Alabama as well. So they're on a quarterback run, and you can better believe that Brock Purdy, has something to do with that. It certainly helps. But I personally, I think Rocco, I think he'll be an NFL quarterback in some capacity. I don't know if he'll be a starter. I don't know about his draft position, but you're looking at a coach's kid. I think his best football is still ahead of him at Iowa State. That first year was kind of a whirlwind. I think that last year Rocco was really good. I know he can be better. There were 4 pick sixes. He was under 60% completion percentage. And again, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I know he can be better. I'm really excited to see him as an upperclassman when there's not all that uncertainty coming off of the gambling thing, and he's a more mature film guy now. His dad's talked to me about that a lot, that he's really worked on that hard. And then, it's just these guys behind him. Like the other thing too, that insight into that, like Campbell deserves credit because he creates that culture that these guys want to stay. I think the fact that he keeps promoting from within too, like this Taylor Mauser hire at coordinator last year, a lot of people are like, oh, first-time coordinator, do you want to do that? Well, part of that deal is these guys are so loyal to Matt because he's so loyal to them. That's why he likes to promote from within. Oh, we got a position coach open up. Let's bring on one of the analysts and give them a chance. It's part of how he keeps that, coaching culture the way it is, and why you have a guy like John Haycock who will stay with him forever, because that's just kind of that feel within that program. So that's been a cool thing to watch them build over the last 10 years or so.
You've talked about a bit about, you mentioned Purdy and then just kind of the string of talent that they've had. Did you ever think when you were interviewing Brock Purdy early on that you were talking to a $250 million man here someday? And just kind of what's been the reaction to that big payday and just the amount of attention that brings and the positivity that brings in a variety of different ways for the program?
But you want to talk about a rock star, that's Iowa State's rock star. That guy, you go into Hilton Coliseum in January and you'll see 100 Brock Purdy 49ers jerseys walking around. Like that you guys got to realize, like, we don't have many RG3s walking around campus. So when you get a guy like that who and Tyrese Halliburton's the same way right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Who not only, wore your colors, but still comes back all the time. So like Brock married a girl, a farmer's daughter from rural Iowa. They're back in Ames all the time. Truly Iowa State fans, like her family is, and the Purdys have been as well. And, the Iowa State fans really appreciate that. And that's the one weapon this place has, is just the loyalty of that fan base. And if you stick it out, even if Brock Purdy wouldn't have done what he's done in the NFL, he still would get a standing ovation every time he walked into that town, because we don't have pro sports in Iowa. Pro sports in Iowa are Iowa and Iowa State. And you can't replace it. It's like, the Vikings are up there and the Bears are over there and you got the Pack, but like the passion and all that, it is not replaceable. That's why George Niang could be the mayor of Ames anytime he wants. Like Botzelberger hangs it up tomorrow, there's going to be a campaign for George Niang to be the next head coach at Iowa State. Like Iowa State fans just have this attachment to certain guys, and Purdy is, and he also helps them. Like he really does. He helps those guys when they ask. He will come on he's come on most of his bye weekends, I want to say, and come back to Ames if they're in town. And he'll meet with recruits like that. It's not for show, but he absolutely helps that football program. And who the guy who discovered him for Iowa State was Taylor Mauser. He was the I want to say like a analyst or something at the time, and he was the one who stumbled upon him. So that's now your offensive coordinator. So those two have a great relationship, and it all goes hand in hand.
Chris, thank you very much. Somebody in the chat wanted to know when Iowa State was going to use that helmet behind you again.
Oh, probably never. unfortunately. But that's the old Clonado helmet right there. That's from the McCarney era, baby.
Yeah.
Good stuff right there, though.
Hey, absolutely fantastic. Glad we had time. Appreciate your time.
Guys.
Appreciate it. Chris Williams with the CycloneFanatic.com with a lot of really good stuff, and appreciate his feedback with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, I think for those that don't know, you're looking around for content around the league. I think Cyclone Fanatic is and Chris right there at the top of that, the go-to for Iowa State. Do an incredible job and always have. So I know he doesn't necessarily do a lot of interviews because he's got his own stuff like we're doing that he's got to take care of. So I appreciate when we do get him on, and he was great. And there was a lot more we could have got to, but we already kept him so long. So
I'm going to get him again. I'll tell you, that was a long, drawn out trying to get him in time to come on with us. It's worth it.
Busy guy. So appreciate when he can give us his time, and that was a good segment. So we're going to take a break here, or
we're going to hold on. We're going to go straight to John McClain. Garrett's working the phones here in just a moment. But
by the way, there's a fake account that's put out it's not NBA Centel, but I'm sure you've seen that always catches people. And there's a fake going on that the SEC and Big Ten are splitting. So just warning, they're splitting away and doing their own thing.
Yeah.
But Derek O'Henryo is not an official source, or is he CBS Sports College Football as he's portrayed? So don't get caught there. But that's floating around in light of all the news swirling today.
We'll have Paul's top five in a moment. Also the poll results from Andrew Valade. But Hall of Fame columnist John McClain with us on 365 Sports. Paul, let you start this off. I got to return a note here in a second, but go ahead.
John, we have not. I know we normally start with the NFL. I do need to get your ideas on the Astros right now. Is this going to get better for anybody in the AL West, or is this what the AL West is?
Well, first of all, Seattle was running away with the division. Last year, the Mariners had a 10-game lead on the Astros in June. The Astros won the division. Right now, the Astros are 1.5 games behind after winning 3 or 4 from Seattle. And what's amazing about what the Astros have done, Yordan Alvarez, who got off to a slow start, got hurt the 3rd of May and hadn't played since. They say he'll be back anytime. So they haven't had their best hitter. They have not had their 4th starter, Spencer Arrighetti, since early in the season because he broke a thumb on his non-pitching end. Now Ronel Blanco, their 3rd starter, has an elbow issue, and he's getting a second opinion. When you hear a pitcher with an elbow injury, you think Tommy John, 2 years out. They're keeping their fingers crossed. And they still have pitchers, Christian Javier and Luis Garcia, on the injured list, recovering from Tommy John surgery. And so they've done this, and with their three guys that they got in the trade for Kyle Tucker, who's been great for the Cubs, the rookie right fielder Cam Smith has hit over 300 in May. He's up to 253. Only played 36 games in the minors, and then Isaac Paredes, 3rd baseman, is their leading home run hitter. He's played as well or better than expectations. Their first baseman they signed for $20 million a year, Christian Walker, hadn't done squat, and he had a 2-run walk-off home run to beat the Mariners on Sunday. He's up to 212 after averaging 31 homers, 94 RBIs in his previous 3 seasons with Arizona. And Hayden Wisniewski, the pitcher who came from the Cubs, Tommy John already. So they've had a lot of injuries. And their best hitter has been Jake Myers, who usually hits around 210. He's hitting 300. And Jose Altuve was in a terrible slump. He's come back. So if they could get just reasonable help, they got a chance to win the division again. Now, last year they got swept by the Tigers. Tigers are one of the 2 best teams in baseball right now. Tarek Skubal just pitched one of the best games ever, 13 strikeouts, went 9 innings, 2 hits. Had less than 100 pitches. I think I saw that hadn't been done in decades. So there might be a changing of guard in the American League, certainly not in the National, where the Dodgers are still the defending champions who have more talent than anybody.
I saw a note, John, on just kind of check on occasionally on your Twitter feed, and of course follow you, but Kansas City has a chance to win their 10th consecutive division title. The Patriots, back in the length of Brady, et cetera, won 11 in a row. That just seems like in this day and age where it's hard to stay on top, and the Patriots were incredible. What Kansas City has truly done, because until this run, they won Super Bowl, 4? And then never sniffed it again. Now, maybe there was a team or two that got close. It's incredible what that franchise has accomplished.
The Chiefs have two things in common with the Patriots. They have the greatest quarterback. Chiefs don't have Brady, the greatest in history, but Mahomes is not too shabby, and they have a great coach in Andy Reid, just like New England had Bill Belichick. If you have a great quarterback and he can stay healthy, and you have a great coach, you got a chance to win and win big. But very few teams have a great quarterback and a great head coach, and that's why the Chiefs have been able to do it. Now, remember, they got throttled by the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and the Rams almost beat the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field in the snow. And so, are the Eagles vulnerable? Are the Chiefs vulnerable to, like, Buffalo or Cincinnati? And they think maybe Jim Harbaugh can get the Chargers to put heat on them, but I don't believe it until we see somebody in the AFC dethrone them in the AFC West or dethrone them as the Super Bowl team. Then that I'll believe it when I see it. It'll happen eventually, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think Buffalo is the most likely candidate in Baltimore. It's time that Baltimore, with Lamar Jackson, won his first Super Bowl, and it's time for Buffalo with Josh Allen to win a Super Bowl, because Lamar Jackson's won 3 MVP awards. And I pick Baltimore every year, and they keep coming close, but no cigar. And so I think those are the teams to put heat on the Chiefs. And I think in the NFC, you got Washington, you got Detroit, maybe Green Bay. And don't laugh at me, but I was reading this today about there's a certain team that's getting 2 of its best defensive players back and drafted a great guard and has a quarterback who's coming back healthy and drafted traded for a multi-talented receiver. Could the Dallas Cowboys be a contender for the NFC East? Well, I'm not going to say that, but I'm going to say yes, they're a contender for a wild card berth. And the thing I can't figure out is why Jerry and Stephen Jones, and of course they call the shots, cannot have addressed the running back situation. They know every time the Cowboys have been successful, from Don Perkins to Dwayne Thomas, Tony Dorsett, Emmitt Smith, Ezekiel Elliott, they've had a star running back, and they didn't address it last year. And they see what teams like Baltimore, Green Bay, Houston, and the Philadelphia did when they got quarterbacks that other teams didn't want. You think they go, well, we got to get one of those, but they haven't done it.
John, one of the announcements coming out of last week, there was all the talk about rules changes, which I'm sure we'll get to at least part of that. They also had a major passing as well. But what do you think about the new Protector of the Year award, honoring offensive linemen? I thought that was kind of a cool deal, and it seems like a lot of the O-linemen who are typically honored in groups, or maybe not at all a lot of times, seems like some people were fired up about that.
I'm with you, Craig. I think it's a great thing for linemen. I can't wait to see how they selected, who selects it. I know this. That's something that would look good on a resume when you come up for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because it's not just all pro. Pro Bowl doesn't count anymore, but all pro does. And if you are the lineman of the year, the people voting on it got credibility. That's a feather in your cap. I love it. And some of those rule changes, I'm glad they didn't vote on playoff seeding. It never would have passed. I think the tush push will be here for one more year. They lack 2 votes. Health and Safety Commission doesn't like it. The Competition Committee doesn't like it. Goodell doesn't like it. I think that enough people voted not to change it because they didn't want to look like cowards for penalizing defending Super Bowl champions for a play they did better than anybody else. But it's only a matter of time before it's gone, probably next year, because they'll do it under the auspices of no propelling players forward unless you're blocking, and that would fall in that category.
John, I want to go revisit your Jerry and Steven running back thing.
Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl, baby.
There are two factors in this. One is they've decided that running back is the new position they're going to save money on. That they've decided that, and it's clear with every move they make about it. And two, they won't be able to pull off a look at this busted injured guy that we made into a superstar at any other position this year other than running back, which is why they're doing it, because they've got to look smart.
Those names I mentioned, Zeke, first-round pick. Dorsett, Emmitt Smith, first-round picks. Calvin Hill, first-round pick. Dwayne Thomas was not a first-round pick. I don't think Don Perkins was. But every successful era, they've had a great running back. And they've had a lot of good ones, too. But this one, I just don't understand what their thinking is. If you're going to cut back on money, and we know Jerry's headed to the poorhouse with the most valuable franchise in the world and needs every buck he can get, it just makes no sense.
John, with where you are in the NFL, as far as the league, is there anything they could do that could ever truly damage what they are and how they are popular on TV?
The only thing I believe that could damage the NFL is if there were a gambling scandal, that they found out a team was like the Black Sox and a bunch of players were throwing a Super Bowl. That's it. And I don't see that happening because they make so much money.
Mm-hmm.
They're under such scrutiny. They've had players get suspended for gambling. It hasn't hurt their popularity at all. I don't see any way that's going to happen because the NFL keeps expanding. You know, they're on their way to playing 16 games overseas. You know, they want to conquer the world. They'll never do that because of soccer, but they can be a close second. And their goal is to bring in $100 million in gambling. And of course, the owners, the franchises get more valuable. Salary cap goes up. Players make more money. The only thing that bothers me about what's coming, 18 games, they better put in 2 bye weeks. That should be something the players union fights for like crazy. But that's not going to affect the popularity of the league. Or maybe if enough quarterbacks get hurt, that would. But then they would just change the rules to make it tougher. But I don't see it happening. I think I used to say when you play as little as they do, you whet the appetite. But still, if you're playing 18, and it wouldn't bother me if they played every day of the week, maybe that's what they're going for, is total annihilation of all other great TV ratings.
Anything else? All right. John, thank you, buddy. Thanks for your time.
I'll be seeing you, I hope, on Friday at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame meeting. I'll be there.
Time to discuss. Thank you. Time to discuss who's going to be on the ballot for the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, which encompasses the entire state, all sports, men and women. And that meeting is usually the first Friday in June. This year moved up to this Friday at the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. I also saw a note. I'll mention this. Mac Brown and Vince Young will be at a Lone Star Legends luncheon in August. I think it's middle of August here in Waco to look back at their 2005 national championship. So that'll be a dynamic luncheon in Waco. I think that the date was like August the 19th. We'll have more information when we get it. Now, the Big 12. You know, you could talk about a lot of things when it comes to football and guys or teams get overlooked. The Big 12, let me go to the first 4 in. Thank you, Garrett. So these are the first 4 in compared to teams that were out. Look at 3 of the 4 in the left-hand column. Last 4 out.
It's the last 4 teams in.
That's what I said.
No,
These 4 teams. Okay, you guys take it out.
No.
All right.
Arizona State, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. Excuse me for making a mistake on that. I didn't mean to. I misread what I was saying. The last 4 in the tournament were 3 of the 4 from the Big 12. And how many times have we discussed sometimes how they've been overlooked when it comes to certain sports? And the last four out, of course, first four out, of course, on the right-hand side, Virginia, I think at one point, maybe even a year or two ago, they ranked number one in the country, but they're out. USC and Arizona State, when I look at those two in the left column, the history of those two programs in baseball that have not been quite the same. So congratulations to those programs for getting into the tournament.
Yeah, I'm somewhat surprised that the Big 12 hasn't been able to, and then a lot of this is NIL based now because it's thrown everything for a loop. Remained a little bit more competitive in baseball, top to bottom. I mean, the SEC is just pumping so much money into it right now. It's not a surprise that they got 13 in and thought they should have gotten 14. I think Georgia Tech should have hosted, as a matter of fact, instead of Auburn. But what do I know? I'm not on the committee. But yeah, this is good that these teams got in, and they owe really strong late season showings from all three of them to do it, especially Arizona State played well in the tournament.
Oklahoma State, Kansas State, West Virginia, Arizona, who won the tournament. Kansas, Cincinnati, Arizona State, and TCU are in the NCAA tournament. And then here are the regional host sites, 16 of the sites. And these are the top four. You just saw that list. Here are the sites. And it's got a pretty good mixture. The SEC, of course, with a large chunk. North Carolina, Clemson from the ACC, Coastal Carolina. Nice to see them involved. Southern Miss is in. Nice to see them have a chance as well to host in Hattiesburg. And those are the 16. Corvallis, Oregon State got in over Oregon to host. Corvallis, of course, out of the Pac-2, and eventually whatever number it might be. But those are the host sites in alphabetical order. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top five, and Andrew Valade and his poll results. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. I went by there last week for Memorial Day weekend and bought myself, I got some new ribeyes, the bone in, and I mean some big ones, 1.25 inches thick, and the boneless ribeyes too. But the best part of it and best thing I ate over the weekend was the bacon-wrapped tiger shrimp. In their butcher shop area with seafood, pork, poultry, and also beef, they had the tiger shrimp, much larger pieces of shrimp and just delicious and so much easier to like when you go to wrap the bacon around if it's small pieces of shrimp. I had 8 of those this weekend. 8 of them. They were delicious, seasons, and also even a little marinade. They have tiger shrimp on occasion at Waco Custom Marketplace. The Bauer family full-service bakery and butcher shop on Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Flag and Anthem. Check them out. Link in the bio. Also, check out our new website, 365sportsdeals.com. Everything you see advertised on the show is on there. Oh, will be eventually, if it's not already. Deals every single day, 365sportsdeals.com. Top 5 takeaways from Greg Sankey. Spoke on Monday at the SEC meetings in Destin. He said a lot of things that garnered some controversy. So I'm going to translate, work through some things, and maybe throw some darts at most honorable Premier Sankey. Number 5, he said that people in the room, which are the SEC presidents, say, why are they still in the NCAA? This is the question that every conference has to ask. And really, what the NCAA is good at is putting on the championships. It's pretty much what their function should be. Maybe academic standards and clearinghouse or something like that. But ultimately, when it comes to rules enforcement and everything else, they've kind of shown that they don't know what they're doing and have no ability to do it in any kind of effective way. So it's a great question. This is actually one of the ones that he stated that I actually agree. Like, why are they still in the NCAA? Something new needs to happen. But when he says it, it does scare people to think, like, is the SEC just going to be in charge of everything? Who knows? We'll see. Number 4, I don't need lectures. He was very mad at what he called a coordinated press release from the ACC and the Big 12. Now, the Big 12 and Clark Williams were quick to point out that they actually had no formal press release. It was just a comment made from Brett Yormark to reporters that day. Now, Jim Phillips did release a statement, but again, was not coordinated. It just sounded the same because they both said that this was not necessarily the best thing for their conference, but it was the best thing for college football. What Greg Sankey said is, I don't need lectures on it. I'm keenly aware of what's best for college football and kind of told everybody it's not my job to worry about it, even though it kind of should be in a perfect ethical world, right? His job is to get the best deal for the SEC at any cost. But that's that last part. At any cost is what makes it insidious, because you don't want to do something at any cost, because eventually that cost will hurt you. The more the SEC and the Big Ten try to chomp up, it might be better for them financially and in the short term, but in the long term, it's bad for college athletics as a whole if we're told as a viewing public that the schools that we went to either have to get in this league or they're less relevant. Over and over and over again. And when you completely alienate, which is most of the country, for television, it's going to be bad ultimately. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, and you don't want to be that hog that gets slaughtered. Sometimes you have to give a little in the short term to gain more in the long term. Greg Sankey is basically saying, I don't need lectures. We've heard from many people who know Greg Sankey. He has not yet deemed us worthy to speak to him. So I don't know, from the horse's mouth if he would ever even answer the direct questions from us about how he feels about the good of overall college athletics based on his words or his actions. His action says that he don't. His words, sure. And maybe he does have some understanding of that. But also, I think there's a little bit more to this. He's the one who gets the most heat. Tony Petitti does not say a word, and he's really the one behind this automatic qualifier thing, which we'll get to in a second. I think Greg Sankey is saying at least a little bit here, hey, can you guys give Petitti some of this smoke? Because I'm not walking through this alone. I'm just the one who's not afraid of microphones. Number 3, pick your poison on formats. So he said a couple things that were a little bit opposite. Like he did say that, based on the current format, winning as many games is the most important thing, but he also said that he would like to continue to schedule competitive non-conference games. So in the AQ format, they would continue to schedule those. But in the 5+11 format for 16, it's unlikely that they would continue to do that. Not only that, if you go the 5+11 route, hey, they're going to get 4 every year, and maybe it stops there. But in most years, they could get 5 to 6 in the 5+11. Personally, I would just take the 5 plus 11, deal with their 5 people a year that they would normally get, and move on, as opposed to, running the risk of putting any one of the 16 worst teams, or not 16 best teams, in the playoffs, personally. And I think automatic qualifiers are dumb and don't make it a proper playoff. They make it an invitational. But he's saying pick your poison. Either way, the SEC is going to win, and we're not going to do what you want us to do. We're going to do what we think is best for us. Number 2, the SEC is unlikely to give anything back. He also said there are people in the room that said we've given away too much. Now, I know that somebody could tell me what the SEC has given away, and maybe they have a good point. But from where I'm standing on the outside looking in, and I see the SEC's continued domination of the entire college sports landscape now, I have to question, what have you given up? I mean, it would be like Jeff Bezos coming to be like, listen, I could have bought 3 islands, but I only bought 2. Like, okay, you still have 2 islands. Why should I feel sad you didn't get the 3rd? I mean, was Alexander the Great like this? Or Genghis Khan? Were they that annoying?
Probably.
I mean, Genghis Khan was terrible, but was he like, hey, you know what? If not for that little rocky patch of land over there, I'd have all this, but I don't like that. So they can keep it, even though there's no one there. I don't understand. And yes, I did just compare Greg Sankey to Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan. Number 1, the conference presidents in the SEC don't care about the non-SEC teams. Garrett, do you understand this meme?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes, the theme song would be They Not Like Us. That is what it is. They're not us. They're not like us. We don't need to worry about them. So the message they're giving Greg Sankey, and this is where I get a little bit on Greg Sankey's side. I think he does understand that everything he does is not necessarily for the greater good of college football. But when he walks into the room with those 16 presidents, they tell them that's exactly what we're paying you to do. And he does it so well. So what he's saying is like, look, you guys can ask me all these questions, you can do that. And he's not going to throw his bosses under the bus. But he answers to 16 of them. 16 of the most powerful college presidents in the country. And they all want the SEC front and center. And it does not matter at what cost. That is his job. That is what he's been hired to do. And anything short of that is not his job. So Greg Sankey is telling us, this is my job. I'm going this way, and I have the direction to go this way, and there are no stops on this train. It only ends with what we want. Now, that's bad for pretty much the rest of college athletics, but it's what 16 people in a room pretty much tell Greg Sankey every time he walks in there. So, again, he's very powerful and controls a lot of college football, but there are 16 people that give him his marching orders. And that's going to do it for this top 5. Smokey has Andrew's polls. Smokey, please.
All right.
Regale the people with some data.
All right. Just a second on that. Craig, what did you see? You have a couple of other notes from anything that was said today at SEC meetings that wanted to pass along?
I mean, not really. It's just quotes that are coming out as everybody's breaking away. Nothing that's important and to need to mention today, but tomorrow we can definitely pass some things along and kind of expound on them further.
We will do that. Jeremiah Dickey of Boise State, AD, will join us tomorrow as one of our guests on the show. And also Mitch Light on college baseball, who we've had on once before. He's back to join us on that. Now,
I guess I'll give you the czar quote, because I did give you all that. SEC's Greg Sankey on if there should be a college football czar jokingly said, a czar didn't work well for Russia, and a drug czar didn't solve anything in the 80s. So that was his response to that. And then there's people like, well, the border czar is working well now, or this czar in this time period is working well now, or this time, and so there's people obviously going back at that quote. But I think mostly he would not want a college football czar, because then that would be somebody above him that he would probably have to listen to. And I don't think he has that right now. So I think that's why he's probably against a college football czar.
Like historically, I mean, czars are like 1 for a million.
Yeah.
Like they're not really
He's got
good.
a point. Yeah.
You got a point with that. Also, I would like to point out there has never been a good time to live in Russia.
Yeah.
They have never once had a president, a king, a queen, a czar, whatever, who gives a shit about them. It's really sad. Like, it is very sad. They have maybe the most unforgiving history of anybody when it comes to the leaders.
All right. So Andrew Valade with a couple of polls he put up earlier today. Are you excited for EA Sports? Craig had mentioned it earlier that it doesn't seem to have that same oomph or quite as much as it did last year after the long drought of no game. No, not interested. 43%. 33% can't wait to play, and maybe depends on gameplay at 24%.
I bought it last year, not even so much to play it, but just for the novelty of it being back. And I have not started dynasties or any of that. I'm just not a big video game player. And when I do play, it's normally like first-person shooters and things like that. So I have no idea whether or not I'll buy this version or not.
I already have.
Oh, you already have?
Yeah,
okay, so
one.
you're in
Cheaper,
the green then.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested, but I think I'd be in the middle if anything. But that's interesting to see the number of red there, and I wonder if that's just
non-video gamers.
Yeah, there's people just like want nothing to do with college, or if you got last year's and you're set with that. Yeah, I don't know.
Here's the people who are gameplay are all younger. I'll tell you that. For the most part, I would almost be willing to bet it, because I listen to our younger guys around here say, like, I didn't like this about the gameplay. I'm like, well, I haven't played it in over a decade, so
yeah,
I'm cool with it. Like, I'm just glad it's back. Like, I'm not bothered by that.
Well, I
have no point of comparison.
They got all of the amount of just casual interest they could possibly have last year, and it won't be the same this year. I mean, it's just not anywhere close. Yeah.
No, and that shows right there. Just 163 votes is a nice chunk. The other part of it, 100 days from the NFL season, what got you hyped? And the leader in the rookie impact at 43%. And then 22 for fantasy football, 18 player comebacks from injuries or maybe suspension, and coaching changes in the new systems at 16%.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking with the majority there, the rookie impact. I've always liked to see who did the best in the draft right away.
Yeah, thought fantasy football would get more, though, because everybody's involved with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a juggernaut. That's as much of a reason why the NFL is what it is today as I think anything else. I mean, you can point to Goodell and moves that he's made, and you can point to players and stars, but I feel like fantasy football has played as large of a role as anything. Would you agree with that as far as fan interest? I mean, even if the games aren't good, you're watching to watch your players, and it's just not quite like that, I think, is in other sports with so many games and all that. So, yeah, that's interesting to see, and probably should have been higher. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew Valade and Garrett Ross running the mothership with his Rip City hat, Portland Trailblazers, right? I mean, back in the day.
Yep.
With Drexler and Kersey and I'm forgetting a few.
Sam Bowie.
Yeah, Sam Bowie. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, great to be back on today. We appreciate those of you who watch us however you do and spend time with us every day at our great sponsors. We're back again tomorrow at 3. This is 365 Sports, and good night.